Drink talk before we start the podcast. What drink do you have today?
It's a razzmatazz from Jamba Juice with pineapple added in. I really like raspberries. It's probably my favorite fruit.
Raspberry flavors, a mixture of the anal secretions and urine of beavers.
All right, I think I'm done with this.
All right, welcome guys to Prepared TBC Weekly Breakdown. This is episode 8 with me and Zirene. So today we are covering, well, bits and pieces of things we didn't get to cover last week because it kind of came in at the tail end of our podcast. So we're going to finish covering the Magtheridon raid testing that both me and Zirene did. There's some little bits and pieces from the blue post that broke in the middle of our podcast. So apologies if like me or Zirene were a little bit distracted during the podcast because that blue post literally came out in the middle of our podcast. So we were trying to like digest it and understand it at the same time. So we're going to cover bits and pieces from that, as well as that WoW server transfers have been announced to be closing at a certain date. Chronoboon is live. There's a beneficial buff prio system now as well. Spell batching is removed essentially in live right now. There's a PvP beta server testing now for PvP on the TBC server. That's been an interesting experience that we'll talk about later, I'm sure. And there's a whole bunch of speedrun news as well. So don't fret, guys. Everyone that comes here, I know there's 99% of you are here for speedrun talk, for sure. I know that's all 99%. There's definitely not 5,000 YouTube comments every time saying, please stop talking about speedrunning every week. But yeah, there will be some speedrunning talk. But as always, guys, we do have timestamps in the description. So when we come up to the speedrunning or other segments you don't want, you can just, skip them. All right, so yeah, let's get started. Zirene, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great, man. It's been a good week. I have no complaints. And honestly, a lot of things we're going to talk about today are probably the reasons why I'm having such a good week. Like, I really feel like the changes that have gone through have helped not just quality of life in the game, but quality of life for somebody who plays the game a lot. I actually get to play the game and not feel like I'm tied to the game, and that we'll talk about that more with Chronoboon. So
yeah. Well, I mean, since you brought it up, we must as well start with the Chronoboon.
All right.
Yeah. So the Chronoboon's live. I'm actually already. I have a full Chronoboon saved up. I got a raid later today that I'm already good to go for, and yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm super excited for this. So it's completely changed the way that I play the game, or at least it changes the feel of the game. I logged in the other day just after Chronoboons got added, and I saw, oh wait, Ren's coming in 5 minutes. I don't have time to go get a Chronoboon. I'm just gonna buy one off the auction house, save that Ren. Now I don't have to worry about Ren for the rest of the week. It's stuff like that has been game changing to how I feel like the game is feeling for me as someone that raids a lot. It's completely changed the dynamic of things.
Yeah, I absolutely, like, I didn't think I was gonna love it as much as I do, and I already just absolutely adore it, and I wish it were in the game from the start, because I get to play my characters. I don't feel bad about respecking PvP, because like when I respec PvP for the week on like my rogue, I feel like I have to I have to either do one of two things: only enjoy that respec for like 2 days or 3 days, and then start buffing slowly, especially as Alliance trying to get rend and stuff. Because I've had raids where like I try to buff the day before, and I get backfires on mind control caps and stuff, and so it's just like it feels awful. And so I really feel like this has changed the way that I play the game as well, because I actually get to play. I get to play the way, like, the spec I want to for as long as I want to. I don't have to worry about dying. I get to play the character that I want to without really having to worry about like getting buffs later. And you can just kind of acquire them as you go through the world, right? Yeah. Like I literally got Songflower. And you can also use Chronoboon while you're invisible, by the way. So if you invis-pot Chronoboon, you can do that. So if you like actually think you're gonna get purged or something, or you want to like slap the buffs on you and shit like that, like my pally, I will bubble pick. I bubble pick the Songflower, and then I use the Chronoboon to put my old buffs on me, and then I invis-pot, and then I use the Chronoboon to take them all away. So basically, there's like no way within that cycle that somebody can get me unless they like. Because you can like gnomish cloaking device in combat and stuff too. So you basically like find a way to be ungriefable, and there's like literally nobody in Stormwind anymore griefing. There's nobody like sitting around. It's actually crazy how good this is. I'm sad it wasn't earlier in the game, but
Yeah.
good lord, is it nice, dude? I actually got to like talk to one of my friends on their character on their main the other day because we passed each other in Felwood. It was like it's the best thing that's ever happened in Felwood in 2 years, to be honest. Like just talking to my friend, I was like, "What the fuck?"
It,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
it's
actually
so
seeing
weird.
people in the game.
Felwood is so weird. Going through Felwood and just not being one, not being worried about my buffs when I'm running through Felwood, and then two, the fact that I don't see I'm not seeing bodies like just dead priests all over the place as well. Because for a lot of them, they've just like, yeah, I don't really bother now because this Chronoboon. You're not really gonna grief them that much. If you die at a
Mhm.
flower, it's like, well, I'm just gonna AFK for 25 minutes and get the next flower because I didn't lose any buffs anyway. Doesn't really
Yeah,
matter. It's completely changed the dynamic of the game for me. It's
yeah.
such a
Love
small
it.
change, but it's so big. Like the actual results from it are crazy.
I mean, honestly, it's better than it's honestly better than what people were saying they wanted with the whole you know, make world buffs non-dispellable. Because even if you did that, you still have to gather all the world buffs at one time. And this is kind of like this is an example of I this is an example of something where like even if the community has like an idea where they're just like just make world buffs non-dispellable, they don't do that, and people are like, why aren't they doing that? And then the designers like, we actually have a better, more elegant solution to this that like is like 10 times better than like actually doing that, because now you have like permanent buff up time. Like you will come into the raid with 60 or 59 minutes on Rend and Songflower both, right? You'll get the full duration of it. You get to store your buffs. You don't get like people can't grief you. There's still a tiny little like element to it where if you do it in a bad place and you like, get ganked while you're doing that, then that's on you. So it's like to me, this is like not like a good solution. It's like the best solution they could have done, at least in my opinion, because I think it's just very elegant. I think it solves a lot of issues while not creating new ones that I think people are upset by or too upset by. Because I know there's griefers out there who want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But it also isn't just the whole just make it non-dispellable type thing, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
it killed all the birds with the stone is basically what happened.
yeah. So because I know I saw a lot of the people who were saying, yeah, why don't you just add an NPC that gives you buffs, or why don't you just give us the buffs then if you're gonna go to this extent? But the way they've done it, the more I thought about it and the more I've experienced it, it's actually kind of a fun change because it hasn't completely destroyed
Yeah.
the process of going and getting the buffs and such. But it's left elements of that in, but it's taken the griefy feeling out of it. I still go get my buffs and such, but I just don't feel like I'm getting griefed when I do it. It's funny, I actually got my Onyxia buff, and I died 2 minutes later because apparently people were outside Ogrimmar trying to kill people who weren't chronoing, and I already chronoed my buffs, so I didn't even mind. I was like, yeah, kill me, I don't care. Let's go. I'll PvP you back now because I don't have to worry about the fact that I just lost like 2 hours of my time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, like I think we keep going on and on about this, but
Yeah.
I know there are people who are upset by it because of the because the fact that it like takes away an element of the game that wasn't there. But the strange thing to me is people are like, you know, hashtag no changes or this is not my classic WoW. I'm like, well, this isn't even like classic WoW isn't even vanilla WoW. Like the way it was played back in the day, you didn't have world buffs, so there wasn't really like world buff griefing or anything like that. Like 15 years ago, so it's an entirely like new dynamic to the game that the designers weren't really expecting, and the solution they found to it, I just think is really good. So I think they solved an issue that occurred because of the modern day, and they solved it in a modern way. So I was actually really surprised by how much I like it, and like the convenience of it too. Like sure, you get your buffs, you log out for an hour, right? You use a Chronoboon if you want to head somewhere else, you just log out for an hour. It's not like overly long, like a 6 hour thing. It costs 10 gold, and I spent like 400 gold because I have to buff 4 characters. And I bought like each of them 10. So it ended up being a decent gold sink
Yeah.
that I sat there and I was like, damn, this feels like a lot of gold. Then I thought about it and I was like, it's kind of the difference in gold of how much flasks used to cost and how much they cost now, right? Because like flasks have gone down by at least 50 gold. So me spending 50 gold a week on a character to buff them kind of makes up the difference. And I'm kind of just paying what I was earlier. So I don't see it as a big deal because I was somebody who was already like required to flask anyway. But I do see it as being something that is a gold sink for people. Like it's going to cost it. It's something that's removing some gold from the game, not a ton, but it. I think the problem that you're going to encounter is it's going to tax people who don't have a lot of gold. It's going to be a large percentage of their gold. So if they weren't somebody who was like doing GDKPs or anything like that, it's going to exacerbate the issue of people feeling like they need gold or to hold on to gold. But you do get to play the game more because of Chronobooning. So, maybe you can actually farm. So that's the bright side.
I actually don't mind the gold sink element of it. If they made it, I feel if they made it 50 or 100 gold each, I think then I might be on the complaint side of things, because then it's like, I don't know, that's a bit much for, it doesn't affect people like me and you as much, but it affects the guys
like
the more casual guys might be really killed by that if it costs that much. But I've just really, really liked it. But to explain how it works, so some people might be still confused about the Chronoboon, so I guess we should explain a little bit about how it works. Is that you click it, you save your buffs, and it spawns a unique item that has your buff saved in it. And you can only have one, so this stops you from getting multiple sets of buffs or any shenanigans like that. They did nerf it since the first time I tested it, so it no longer works in combat. That's the main change, is that you can't be on a bus and be like, oh no, things are going bad, I'm gonna click my Chronoboon now and save all my buffs. So I think that was essentially why they nerfed it, is to stop things like that. They didn't want it. So yeah, you can no longer use this in combat. If you get into combat while you're using it, it actually blocks you as well. I think it stops you or something to that effect. So you cannot use this in combat at all. That's been the one nerf that they put to it. The one thing I will say though is it is a little bit buggy. it is definitely a little bit buggy. Have you noticed any of the bugs, Zirene?
One bug I saw was I used it, spun around, and still had my buffs on me, and then I had to log out and then back in to have it register that my buffs were ripped off. I think that's about the only one that I really saw, except for the ones that were on, PTR and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a few that's been going around. So I saw one where everyone around the guy was waiting for a Songflower, and the guy released his Chronoboon to stack it with his Songflower, and it gave the ZG buff in his Chronoboon to everyone, which was something that happened on PTR as well, is that you could accidentally just buff everyone around you with your buff.
Yeah. So there was actually a thing where, like, on PTR you could there was like a glitch where you could give your buffs to other people, like just use your Chronoboon on them by accident, kind of thing. And we were thinking about it, and we were like, okay, so what class like doesn't need their buffs? So we were actually like, if paladins, if you guys come with your Chronoboons, like legitimately, like paladins don't need world buffs. It doesn't affect their healing output. It just affects their mana basically. Their crit is already like pretty high and stuff like that, so they don't really like benefit too much from it in terms of their output. So we were like, okay, paladins, hold on to your Chronoboons. When a warrior dies, after you res him, use your Chronoboon on him, and then he's got world buffs again, right? So we were like thinking of things like that. It's not like consistent or anything you can do like regularly.
Yeah.
So we don't really think it's like an abusable thing.
Yeah. All the bugs I've seen haven't been easily replicated. Like even I've heard rumors of Onyxia and Rent and the Farron buff counting as two separate buffs, but even I've tried to replicate it, I haven't been able to replicate it. It seems like there's some weird buggy instances where things happen, but it's not something that you can count on happening every single time, even with the ZG buff giving the ZG buff to everyone else. But it does raise a question though, because they pushed this out in a slightly buggy state with these things happening, and it makes me a little bit worried about TBC, because it feels like they pushed this out without it being fully fledged out and like 100% in working state.
Yep.
And then I look at TBC and think, man, there's a lot of bugs on TBC right now. Are you guys gonna do this with TBC as well? Because that kind of worries me.
Yeah. I actually had a Blizzard employee. We were having a conversation. The Blizzard employee tell me, quote unquote, "Ha! You think you have 2 circuses left for speedrunning?" So I was like, "It's like, wait, what do you mean? Like, does that mean we have like one circus left and it's coming in like a month? Or are you saying you think you just have 2 circuses left? Ha, this thing is like far away. And then he just smiled and like, motherfucker. Like, I hate this guy. But to me, that kind of means like I think that the way Blizzard is like heading right now, it's either 1 month or 3 month kind of thing. 2 months seems like it would be like too much on the nose kind of thing. I think it's either it's more along than we think it is, and they're ready to release it kind of thing because it is phase 1, etc. And they've already shown us the raids are kind of ready. It just they have to like clean up a bunch of other things, or it's 3 months away and they want to do like a pre-patch thing and stuff like that. Because I think pre-patch is probably going to hit in like a month or 2. And then they're just going to go, or maybe they'll give us more time to play with Chronoboon. But I think it's probably going to be like a month or 2 until we get pre-patch. And then from there, TBC might be a month or 2 after that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to link this to the next topic, since it's something that we're talking about already now, is that sister server. Yeah, the server transfers are going down on the 30th, I think they said. Let me see here. Yeah, April 30th is the last day for server transfers. Well, they're going to shut it down for a few weeks, they say. No exact date on how long it's going to be down, but it does lend a lot of credence to that May 18th leak date, because it lines up perfectly with that. It seems to line up exactly with what you would expect they would do if pre-patch was coming on May 18th. Mm-hmm. So at this stage, I feel like it's almost like confirmed at this stage. It seems to be very, 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 very close pre-patch, if this is what they're doing now.
Yeah, because I think what they're going to want to do is give us a lot of time to play with pre-patch, like legit, like a month or 2, because it's the time that people can level up shamans, because I believe pre-patch is going to give you access to Blood Elves, Draenei, and the opposite race or opposite class for the factions. It's also going to be the time that they implement things like, I think they're going to throw down AoE cap at that time, but they're also going to do the honor system. So, and I can tell you like straight up, like grinding enough honor for like a Grand Marshal weapon, let alone 2 of them, is probably going to take you like 2 weeks. So I don't think they're going to go like, here's pre-patch, and then a month later they're like, here's TBC. I think it's going to be like 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months. I could see that 2 months, especially with how much stuff is broken in the in the beta, which we can talk a bit about that as well, which is man, the PvP server is very, very I don't know how to say it, interesting
interesting. God, interesting is the I'll tell you straight up, as a commentator that worked for Riot Games, is when somebody says interesting, it really just means bad, and you don't want to say bad. Like you're like that game was interesting, or like that was a really interesting play. It's like, unless it's like that was super interesting. If you say interesting as a descriptor and you're hesitant, you just mean it's bad. You just mean it's bad, but you don't want to say that. So I'll be your translator for today. It was bad. It's bad. You translated for me last time. I got you today, Sno.
And the day 1 of it was really bad. I don't know if anyone else got on the TBC PvP server beta. So what happened is they brought the Badge of Justice server back up, the same server used for raid testing. And they said, okay, PvP is available. And they gave everyone just a very basic blue set of gear. You could get a very, very basic. I actually spec'd it out with proper gems and enchants and such. You ended up about, if you properly enchanted, about 200 resilience on rogue at least. About 200 resilience and about like 8.1k HP. I think something around there. And that was with a mix of stamina and resilience enchants and such. And it was okay. It's not like ideal like what you would be arenaing with, but it's okay. It's for rogue, it didn't feel that bad. For some classes, I believe some of their sets were worse than they would.
So I don't know what's going to happen with that, because in my recollection, those sets did not exist until like phase 4. Because those are the reputation sets. Those are the ones that come from like getting honored with honor hold, or getting honored with spore guard and stuff like that, and then getting a piece from each. Those didn't come until later, so I don't think you'll have those at the start. But if you do have those at the start, then it's like a really good like catch up introduce like PvP thing. because otherwise you're PvPing with no resilience, and if you didn't play the game, and you're like late to the party, other people are gonna have way more resilience than you, and it's gonna feel like impossible to win, etc. And you'll get low points, so it'll be like a drag. So starting off late will be like really bad. But if they have this, then I think it's actually a really good idea to introduce these earlier, if that makes sense. Because I think having access to some resilience without having to PvP is a good thing, right?
Yeah. So for people that don't know, resilience basically means you're not gonna die as fast. If you want to know what it basically does, and in arena, if you don't have resilience, you just blow up with the amount of damage going out. If you don't have resilience, you're just gonna blow up. So arena is really about stacking a lot of resilience and stamina and such. Outside of really niche comps, you can do some interesting two-man comps where you just aim to blow someone up really, really quick. Most people are stacking heavy resilience and stamina and such in arena. Because it's more about CCing chains and bursting people within windows and such. And you got to survive for that. Otherwise, you're just going to blow up at the start if you don't have that.
Yeah, it's one of the things that like a lot of people talk about, like Mage Rogue being really strong. Well, Mage Rogue actually requires coordination to play well. It's got like a really high ceiling, but you can't just go in with any like random buffoon and do well, because there's a lot of just like delicate CC you have to do, and there's very little healing in that composition at all. It basically like bandages, right? And you have to, the damage that gets dealt to you sticks. So any like misplays you have, any things where they get you, it really does feel like you have to like outplay or play really well at a high level the entire time. So there's also some fun comps that have popped up. I call them fun, and you know that's my word for probably like a little toxic. And it's there's a lot of double healer comps that are popping up now, and actually doing well. And I think the reason is because right now double healer compositions like against like comps that are either double DPS or like healer DPS, there's not a lot of resilience in the game. So double healer like whittles you down, or they have a priest mana burn your guy, your healer, and like get him and it's really hard to take them out. It's much harder to take them out with like the current gear people have. Like they don't have the best weapons and stuff like that, and people don't have a lot of resilience, so it's hard to blow up one of the healers because they'll heal each other and cross heal, whereas they can whittle you down. So it feels like that comp beats a lot of double DPS compositions, and it feels like some of the comps that are supposed to be very dominant right now aren't dominant because the gear just isn't there. So like for example, like somebody's talking about like Snuts and Venruki playing SL Lock Resto Druid, like that's a very, very good composition, and that only gets better the more resilience you have, right? Like that gets much better the more resilience you have. So like that Warlock survivability goes up, right? It makes it so that the comp is supposed to do or does what's supposed to do and last as long as possible. But right now it just feels like Burst is king, and I don't think that's going to stick for actual release, because as people get their sets, as people get more resilience, maybe some burst. Yeah, maybe some burst comps end up at the top at the beginning, but they will slowly fall down the ladders, and it won't be as prevalent as people learn how to play against them and people have more resilience. So, yeah, right. It's very interesting, like you said, very interesting. Right now,
like I like to add on to that, like why people won't be listening to this and saying, "Hey, this sounds great! Like this sounds like fun and such." What the reason we're saying interesting, aka bad, for the PvP server right now is because there's a lot of issues. Like on day one, we couldn't even play. I played maybe 2-3 games in a row, and then you would crash, and it was just crashing nonstop. I know Bobcat's in the chat right now. Day one of the PvP server was a mess. You basically you would zone into the arena, half the time you would just crash, and then you would have to log back in. So literally there's like 5,000 clips. If you go to any PvP's stream from that day, it's just rage clips are the highlights of everything, because they would do something amazing and then crash, and then they'd have to reload into TBC again. Thankfully they did get that fixed by day 2 though. They did get that fixed by day 2, so it seems the crashing has kind of stopped happening. But besides that, it's just one, the gear sets weren't ideal, but two is that there's so many bugs. There's so many bugs in PvP. It almost feels like talking about it from a rogue standpoint, it almost feels like if they release it as it is now, rogues are going to be a lot weaker than they should be if they release it right now. Like right now, just to give an example on the rogue front, we're still losing combo points when you focus blind and such.
Yeah.
Your shadow step isn't working quite the way it's supposed to. Trinkets are not working properly half the time. Like you can trinket stuff and sometimes it just doesn't do anything. It's just there's a lot of stuff like this which is, it feels really bad to play the PvP because there's this weird element of bugginess where you don't know whether you're gonna get screwed over by a random bug that just happens out of nowhere.
Yeah, and that feels like it takes the fun out of things. Like you want it to be smooth, and one of the big appeals of WoW was just kind of like how little you felt like you were like cucked by the game. Of course, batching, did change that a lot for vanilla, but in TBC, it definitely was something where Arena felt like almost all the time like the better players at the top level would win. Right? It didn't feel like there was a lot of the game kind of fucking you over type thing. So the less they have of that, obviously the better.
But yeah, I'm just kind of worried honestly because it feels like they've tried to fix some of the rogue issues in the past. At least coming from my standpoint as a rogue is they tried to push out some fixes for rogue combo points and things, and it's working better than it was at release, but it's still broken. So I'm hoping that they're just gonna keep tweaking it because right now there's just so many bugs. There's so many bugs. It feels like I'm playing my class with one hand behind my back a lot of the times because things just aren't working properly.
You started making me go down this rabbit hole of like, I'm trying to remember, because I clearly remember doing this back in the day, but I don't remember if it was Classic or TBC or very early in Classic. You could slice and dice off dead bodies, and I don't remember when that was and when they removed that, or when they put it in, because I remember at some point in the game, some point in the first two expansions or versions of the game, you could slice and dice off dead bodies and actually use the combo points. And I was like, I don't know if that's something that you can actually do in TBC, but at least right now you can't. But maybe it was a very early version of the game, but I digress. There's a lot of bugs and stuff, and I Bobka says shadow stepping into the void is fun. Yeah, like it's kind of hard to get a read on what PvP is going to be like, but I think the biggest takeaway for me from that server is it's still like not ready kind of thing. Yeah. Where I'm like, they're still like, I feel like they're at least 2 months out from TBC, right? Like, which does make sense, like a month or 2 months for, or a month for pre-patch and then 2 months of pre-patch or 1 month of pre-patch. I feel like it'll be in a healthier place, but I don't know. I kind of want to do Kara again, man. Like I'm itching for it. Like only getting 1 day kind of, I thought it would burn me out on it, but it made me just want to try more things.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. The positive, despite the fact that it was an insanely buggy PvP experience and still is that a lot of people are rediscovering the fun of PvP again. It wasn't just me where I would queue up and say, okay, I'm just gonna play 1 arena game or like 5 arena games, and you look at the clock later and you're like, man, I've been queuing for like 2 hours now. Despite the crashing, I've still been logging back in and playing arena over and over again, despite it being a buggy mess.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens with TBC PvP, because I think a lot of people who are like big PvPers, like Venruki is literally playing right now with Zico, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of people who are good at the game and have been good at the game for a long time. Some people got their start in TBC, but Arenas is way more competitive than anything in Classic. It's something that's going to bring a lot of the retail players who have been playing for a long time and have been good into it. And I'm actually very interested to see what it's going to be like to have that type of scene and how long that will last, because some people will play for a bit and then they'll leave, but a lot of people are popping in, and I'm frankly excited, because as somebody who enjoys esports and all that, like this is something where I think TBC Arena is the version of Arena that is the most spectatable, right? I feel like you go watch retail right now, you can't really tell who the fuck is winning. You're just like, you're like, that guy was 2% HP, and then he just like gets to full, and you're like, it's like, wait a second. It's like people have like auto frenzy and stuff like that. You're like wait, and then somebody like gets 100 to 0'd, and you're like, well, shit. How how did that happen? Like they got convoked. Oh, you got like combusted. Like
Yeah, there's too many
it's
skills. Like as expected, it's,
there's a
it's
lot.
so like I have no idea what's going on when I watch. Because sometimes I do try, like I'll pop in on like a Zayu stream or something like that, and I'll see,
Mhm.
okay, what's he doing? What abilities does a mage have? And then I just sit there
Yeah.
going, I have no idea what's going on. No
And
idea.
like the thing too, I think about retail that like I even like have played retail and played arena and like gotten up to like 22, 2400 even like this season. And I'm just like, I don't always understand what everybody can do because there's like variations in talents, right? And every talent point like is significant for classes. And you're like, oh, this guy has this talent instead of this one. And even if a commentator says it, I'm just like, there's no time for them to explain what's going on. They're literally just saying every ability back to back to back. And I'm just like, well, shit. It's so hard to see it. Like the readability of it is very low. You can't tell who's winning at any given moment. And it's very difficult for you to like really process what's going on. There's a lot of clutter, right? A lot of particle clutter, a lot of visual noise. And for me, it just is something that makes it harder to get into. Whereas I feel TBC is very readable. You look at the health bars, you look at the mana bars, and you can tell who's winning most of the time. Like I would say like 80% of the time, you can look at the HP bars and the mana bars of both teams and tell and be able to tell me who's winning. And then look at trinket cooldown, and that's it. And you could basically see that, right? Or who's getting like a setup ready. So it's also like that's a problem I have, like not for not to like bag on people who play like Final Fantasy 14, but I played Final Fantasy 14 for a while and I just don't like the visual clutter. Like it's called particle noise. It just means there's a lot of shit going on. It doesn't mean like actually like hearing it. There's a lot of like shit going on. And I remember like playing like the paladin or even like the class that you start off with to get to paladin. I was like, your first ability is like fast blade, and it's just like you just fucking like have this big ass spark come out of your sword and swing twice, and I'm like, holy shit. And then it just gets worse from there. Like every single person is just like in a fight, people are just slamming abilities that just fucking like they jump up, hit the ground, giant AoE swords fly up, and like fucking light beams. I'm like, holy shit, I can't tell what's going on to save my fucking life. But it sounds cool and it looks cool. But everybody's kind of like the center character of their story, right? Like they're like the main character. Whereas WoW kind of feels like you're just another fucking badass peon, you know? You're just somebody coming up from the rags, you know? You got a cheap shot, you got a kidney shot. You ain't like fucking Kamehamehaing people.
Yeah, it's very hard to follow a retail, even just retail raiding. When I try to watch retail raiding, there's so much stuff going on in the screen, and I that's why streamers like Peekaboo are really popular. I don't know if you ever watched Peekaboo, a rogue streamer, and it's because he's one of the few people who has like some weird ability in his brain to call out everything he's doing as it's happening, and it's the only reason people watch him is because they can actually kind of half follow what he's doing, because he's like, oh, kidney here, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna shadow step here, and then I'm gonna blind him here, and then he's gonna be on cooldown, and I'm gonna 2-minute cooldown here, and like he's the only one I've seen who can actually live commentate it at that speed.
No, there's another person, but I'll talk about them in a second. But yeah, Peekaboo. There's this clip of him where somebody's like, I don't know how to play rogue. Can you teach me how to play rogue? Yeah, man, it's really easy to play rogue. You just jump in here, you use the kidney shot, you do 6 points there, and then he's dead. And you're just like, wait, like he said in like 2 seconds. You're like, wait a second.
You just named 50 abilities in that 2-second time.
I was like, wait, but the other person is Crusader. I don't know if you know who Crusader is. The people who know Crusader will know who Crusader is.
Not.
This guy speaks a mile a fucking minute, and also can flame his teammates in between the ability calls. So he'll be like, sacking, gonna pre-bubble, like he's like pre-freedom. This guy fucking sucks. I don't know what he's doing, but like, he just does it. Yeah. Oh my god. Oh yeah. The Crusader's the other person that fucking does that now. And I don't know why, but I eat that shit right up. I love that. Oh, God.
Yeah,
but it's a lot of comms.
Yeah, I'm so excited for PvP, honestly. A big part of for me is that people think I'm a PvE guy because I make PvE guides mainly in Classic. But from TBC onwards, I actually barely PvE'd the first time around. I pretty much just PvP'd. I log in and PvP. And talking about why I never played retail is because it comes back to what you brought up earlier, where you feel so far behind in the skill
Mhm.
knowledge. If you just miss like one expansion, you feel so far
Yeah. Oh
behind.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
so
yeah,
yeah,
dude.
yeah. Like I
I,
come back
I
and I have no idea what's going on.
like I quit in the middle of TBC. Or sorry, I quit in the middle of Wrath. Like Wrath came out, I was like, "Fuck Death Knights, dude." And I was like, "But Old War's pretty nice." So then I was like, "But fuck Death Knights." So then I left, and then when I came back at the end, I was like, "Why does this feel so different?" And then like Cata came out, and I didn't join Cata till the middle, and I was like, "I have no fucking clue how to get started." Like, there's just it's even though it was like pretty much like the same game kind of thing, like same talent system, stuff like that. I was just like, there's just so many different things in it that get introduced over time. Even like profession changes and stuff like that, right? Like
Yeah.
jewel crafting, pretty minor. But then you get to like inscription and things like that, and you're just like, okay, how do I go about like this? What's good for this? So it's just like more and more things for you to have to figure out what to do. Um, and so like the burden of knowledge just increases every expansion, and that's why like what I like I think I've talked about this before. I firmly believe that what they should do is after TBC, they should just not reintroduce Wrath the way that it was, because I think Wrath, a lot of people like that expansion, stuff like that, but I think it's the first time that people were quitting at the same rate that they were joining. And they have a chance to make it like not fucking suck. Like, don't add like the features that people complain about. Don't add like the different difficulties of heroic and stuff like that. Just have one difficulty the way it's meant to be played, kind of thing. And just kind of do like a WoW 2 off of the classic era instead of like doing what you were talking about with Holly Longdale repeating. I think they can legit go and be like, yo, Wrath of Lich King, but it's going to be different this time. We're not going to have like Trial of the Crusader or this other stuff in there. We're going to have the good parts. And then, if they introduce another expansion, they do like the Emerald Dream thing that people always wanted back in the day, where they were like, the next expansion should be the Emerald Dream. And they were like, ha, we got your dragons. They ain't the green kind, though. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like Deathwing. And you're like, who the fuck is it? It's like Neff's dad. And they're like, okay, I kind of get it. Okay, but we just killed Arthas. It's like Deathwing. it's like I don't know why I should care about this. He fucked up classic WoW. It's like, oh, that motherfucker. Like he destroyed the actual game literally. Oh God, I don't know. But they have a chance to really make it like I think just kind of create like a WoW 2 off of that, and not get it to the point where it's like you change the talent system, you change the way that the game is played, and you keep like the good parts of the systems and just add on to them, but not make it like too complex or too hard for people to join. Because the thing that they kept trying to do over time was they kept trying to make it so that people could keep joining. They were like, oh, don't worry about it. You don't need friends to play this game.
Yeah.
We got Group Finder, right? You don't need to understand the raid at a high level. We have like a baby version of it for you. Like, you can play that. I just think what they should do is they should just not overcomplicate the game over time and make it like a clutter with all these other things. So that's what I think stops people from joining the game. Is the more complex it got, the more people felt like they were going to be behind and it wasn't worth picking up, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean,
that's why I think subs went the way they did.
To link back to the Chronoboon that we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
It really the best thing about a Chronoboon, honestly, is that it shows to me at least that Blizzard can do some things right, because there's a lot of faith loss when they did stuff like the leatherworking change, and people were like, oh no, like has Blizzard gone completely, they just lost your mind, they've just completely lost your mind at this point. But now with the Chronoboon, it feels like they've proved that they can improve on the game, and that a classic plus is doable as long as people are open to some changes, and then the right changes. It can have impacts on the game, but as long as you don't change the core part of the game that makes WoW, you can still have changes in there that really impact things like Chronoboon, where it has completely changed how classic feels almost.
Yeah, I want to make 2 points really quickly. I want to talk about what Menarch just said, where he says the game ends when Arthas dies. For me, then if people really feel that way, after Wrath of the Lich King, you just go straight to Shadowlands, but it's a different version of Shadowlands, because the thing about Shadowlands that I loved was going down to different areas and seeing like, oh, there's fucking Lady Vaj. I killed that bitch. Like, you're like, oh shit, like Arthas is a part of this Uther story, and you go straight to that and you just make it different, where people actually interact with people they've already killed, kind of thing, right? Where there's bosses and things like that based off of old content and things like that, but they're different, right? Same but different, but same. But you're still using loved characters from Warcraft 3 that people identify with. The other thing I wanted to say, it was off of this Chronoboon thing, was working in game design. There's a thing called player trust, and it's a currency, right? You spend it and you lose it and you earn it, right? If I make a change that is shit for the game, I'm spending player trust that I have accumulated. If I've done enough good things as a designer and I do something shitty, it's going to tax our trust, right? It's going to tax my trust of the product. I have to earn that back, but also you're only allowed to make big enough mistakes that you've earned enough player trust to do, right? So if Blizzard fucks up, like back when they had done TBC originally, people are going to be like, oh, don't worry, this company's fucking badass. Like they've built player trust over time, right? They have such a big stockpile of it that they can fuck up 10 times and they're fine. What's happened with Classic is it's kind of gone back and forth, but I think Chronoboon is like the first big win for them where they've really earned a lot of player trust here. So they have a bit to spend and make some bad decisions, but obviously, of course, it's make bad decisions before people quit the game kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So whenever they make a bad decision, it costs X amount of player trust dollars. And then if they go into the negative, people are quitting and then they're fucking giving up. So you have to earn the player trust. And I really feel like Chronoboon has done that with me, where I'm like, I actually trust Blizzard again as a company because I give them a lot of credit for not doing the change that I thought they should do and kind of going like, you don't want buffs to be non-dispellable. I'm like, yeah, actually I do. And they're like, no, you want Chronoboon. And I was like, what the? Oh, I want Chronoboon. Yeah, I want Chronoboon. Like, it was a surprise to me that I actually wanted this thing after it came out. And that for me, that's the thing that makes me go, these designers, it's not that like they know best, it's they know better than me, right? That's the thing that I go like, you know what? As soon as you go, I don't think I could run the game as good as they can. That's when you're like, you feel like you can play the game and enjoy it and really be like, I trust these guys. Because how many people go like, just make this fucking change, just buff this class, just do that. Those are the people who like don't completely trust the company to do the things they want them to do. But as soon as they do things like this and then you get pleasantly surprised, that's the stuff that makes you go like, I actually like the way they're going with the design. So I'm excited because I think that they have some changes that they could do. They have some really big spots where they can earn a lot of player trust near the end of Classic, in pre-patch, and in TBC. And I'm actually frankly excited. If I was a Blizzard employee right now, I'd be really excited for the future, after this week. Because I think I've seen more people playing the game this week than I have in like the last few months.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, even just getting WCB Ren buff in Org on my Alliance Rogue, it's the first time I've ever done WCB and seen almost like, it feels like the entire population of Alliance just popped out of nowhere for WCB, because suddenly everyone's not worried about losing their buffs as much when they're popping out there. It's been fun, man. It's been so fun.
Yeah, it's like, it's crazy. Like, Tangish in chat is saying, I've seen mains online that I usually only see online for raids. Yeah, like the raid logging memes, like people are doing ZGs again, dude. Like you can actually gear up bad characters. Like, dude, I can't tell you how bad it's felt to like level up my mage and then be like begging my guild, like, yo, just take me to AQ40, just take me to Naxx. In return, I'll boost our shamans through like the first few levels, man. Like I'll get you guys to like past Scarlet Monastery and then I'll get you to like maybe, Mara, and then I'll suck at Mara boosting. So it's like, I can't tell you how awesome it is to at least be like seeing ZG groups again. And my server is populated and like now seeing like more BWL pugs. Cause like my fucking warrior that raid logs can now do a BWL pug. Right. Yeah. And people are saying there's some, so like, this is an interesting thing. I don't know if this is a Chronoboon bug, but people are saying that some buffs have slightly different IDs. So like the ZG that goes out in Booty Bay is a different ID than the ZG on the island. So you can have a ZG from the island in your Chronoboon and then get ZG in Booty Bay. And if you get an Oni head and store it, you can get a Neff head. And I don't know if that means you can get a War Chief's Blessing in Org and then get a War Chief Blessing in Crossroads, or pick a different Songflower than the one you picked.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. I think it patched I think it was patched.
This no longer works.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope it no longer works anyway. Cause
I hope so too.
Yeah,
because I
don't want that. I don't want that meta.
I really don't want that to be a thing.
God, could you imagine that
man.
meta where now not only do we do Chronoboon, but now everyone has to go, okay, make sure you get the booty bay version of your ZG on top of your Chronoboon.
Yeah.
Oh, that would suck.
Like, and for me, like, one of the things that Blizzard really kind of like to continue using the analogy, they taxed my trust was batching, because I do remember the game having some latency to it, right? I do remember the game having latency. I don't remember being able to like double blind a rogue and have us both blind each other. I don't remember being able to vanish death and have it say it overkilled me in my combat log but still be alive. It's like there's so many things that I'm just like, I really feel like batching really kind of just taxed my trust of Blizzard. And now that they've removed it finally, by the way, guys, like this is what people were playing with on PTR. So like our executes weren't batched in Naxx at all. Like everything was really responsive. Like your bops, your lay on hands. I can't tell you, dude, as a fucking paladin, your bops and lay on hands being batched is just, I feel like paladins got batched more than any other class in the game in terms of like things that would have been game changing. Just losing your bop when you actually just used on somebody and it goes on cooldown. Same with lay on hands. It's like trading. See, it's Menarch. All right, Menarch actually talks about the thing that I think is probably the best thing is when you trade items to people, it's instant, right? There's no like you both press accept, both windows go green, and then it closes. It's like boop boop, and then it's gone. And you're kind of like, wait, did they cancel the trade? It's so nice for like trading health stones and stuff like that, or water even. And oh god, dude, like trading water in raids with Chronoboon, the mages have Chronoboon. They don't mind logging in early, dude.
Yeah, that's true. You don't have to sacrifice one guy anymore.
Yeah, dude, everybody's kind of happy about Chronoboon. At least all the PvE guys are happy about it. And I got to tell you, right now, the only crowd that was really staying around was the PvE guys. So they're catering to those dudes.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Blizzard trust thing. I remember back in the day with Classic. Way back when vanilla, actually, back then Blizzard could do no wrong. I feel like in the eyes of the gaming community back then, if Blizzard made something, and I feel that's why WoW was so popular the first time as well, is that if Blizzard released a game back then, it was like the gold standard. You know, oh, this is the best game ever. Then this is a Blizzard title. Like enough said, it's Blizzard.
Before you continue, it's at Riot we had a term for this. It was a genre-defining game. Blizzard was constantly releasing genre-defining games where if somebody says, oh, MMORPG, you think WoW. You think real-time strategy, you think StarCraft, right? It's like they release a game, and without fail, it's the game that when people say the name of the genre, you think of that game. It's like people say MOBA, it's like, League of Legends, right? And where it used to be like Dota 2. So I really like that, like you're really hitting on like the Blizzard polish back in the day of they couldn't do any wrong, and I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I hope it continues. I'm really excited for the future. It's given me like hope. I feel like I lost a lot of hope, but it's definitely brought back a bunch of hope into the possibilities of the future of Classic. Because before this, I was almost feeling like we're just gonna keep going until Wrath, and then bad things are gonna happen, and then oh no, what's gonna happen then?
Yeah, I mean, they have a really golden opportunity here. I think Blizzard, like, maybe they'll think of something better than me, but I really think they should just branch off Wrath of the Lich King, redo Wrath of the Lich King. They have the ability to do that. Take out the parts that people didn't like, and then, like, or just go off of TBC into a different version of the game, right? Like, I really think they should branch the game off. I think that this, okay, to put it in a really strange way, I think retail is the future for casual players, but I feel like Classic is the future for the hardcore players, and that's what they need to appeal to, but not overly complicate it so that people can join. So I feel like they have a great opportunity there, and I would want to see them take that. But
yeah. Well, I mean, you touched a little bit on the stuff, so I think we should cover the things that we didn't get to cover at the end of last.
Wait, but one more thing, because we didn't cover it. I fucking love the buff priority system as a main tank. I fucking love you guys.
Oh, yeah.
I may actually play the I may play classic era. I may give them my money to copy a character over to classic era, and I wasn't gonna do that. Like I was just like, you know what? It's all about TBC, but I may actually do that because good fucking god, no batching, no like all these changes where I can just store my buffs, wait, like raid log, not worry about it, get them very easily, and not worry about my buffs being pushed off. Like it, it's mind boggling that this wasn't a thing before, but it actually is so good. Do you have any info about the buff prio system?
So I have it up on the screen now for
yeah,
them. Yeah.
yeah. The buff prio system is something that's just going to take world buffs and longer duration or stronger buffs that have been flagged by the system to not get pushed off, because currently things get pushed off. Things get pushed off in an order that is like it's order in which you have buffed. But now the buff prio system will take things like renew and remove renew from you, right? If that's like the newest buff and it's going to push something off. So
yeah,
I think there is still some things they need to do to it in terms of buff priority, but
yeah, so
we'll see.
To explain to people asking all the questions about buff power, so basically the way it used to work is you like if you go through DMT and you get your DMT buffs, everyone knows that your slip kicks gets pushed off first because you got the slip kicks first. It will be the first one in line to get pushed off when you hit your buff cap. So the buff cap is 32, and if you go over that, it's you start pushing off your previous buffs. That's why you see sometimes raiders will cry when they suddenly lose their DMF buff or whatever it is because they went over buff cap. But the way they've changed it with this new buff priority system that came in with the spell batching and Chronoboon patch is that all your world buffs and such now count on the same level as like a flask, in that it's not going to get pushed off. If you get a world buff, it's not going to get pushed off for the most part. So they all have this really high prio.
I'm actually like, so like here's the thing is people didn't know this was coming, right? Like, when did you first hear about this? In the patch notes, right?
In the patch notes, yeah.
Yeah. So the speed run that we did last Saturday or last Sunday, we were doing PTR and we were getting like 48-minute times consistently. I wasn't losing any buffs. I was like sitting there watching my buff cap tracker. I was like, okay, I can use like a food or something. I can use these, and my buffs weren't getting pushed off. And I'd get to the end and I'd be like, oh wow, I kept all of them. That's awesome. Like I didn't lose my swiftness of Zanza or anything like that. And as soon as I did the live run, I had pushed my swiftness of Zanza off, like within the first 3 bosses. And I actually didn't use a food there, and I used the food on live. And I was like, wait a fucking second. I was like, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I actually talked about it on my stream when it happened, and I realized I was moving slower. I was like, I pushed my swiftness off. I was like, I literally did like 8 fucking speedrun tests on PTR, and I never pushed it off. I was like, what the fuck? And I even main tanked some of those runs because like your main tank dies and the off tank has to stand up. I'm like, I've main tanked some of those runs, had tons of hots on me, and I never had shit pushed off. And then as soon as we do the live run, I'm like, fucking great. Like it's one of those things where like everything that's gonna go wrong in the live run goes wrong. And I was actually like a little peeved. But now I realized what they had done is they had stealth implemented this to test it and didn't fucking tell anybody about it. So I fucking hate that because it fucked with me on the run, but at the same time, it's such a good change. And
I mean, you're a warrior, so for you it's even more.
Yeah.
Like warriors are the guys that probably have to pay the most attention to that stuff, especially since he's like a tank as well.
Yeah.
Warriors, there's an ongoing. If you've ever raided in a semi-hardcore above guild, the warriors will have a mantra every week to say, guys, remember, no hots on me, or no this and that, because they cannot risk getting important buffs pushed off. But that's why Zirene's excited about this, because he's a warrior and now he doesn't have to worry about like hots as much and such.
Yeah, and there's fights where you have to allow hots, right? Like you have to, like, if you're, honestly, in speedrunning, it's a little bit better because you don't have to like worry about it as much on like Makesna, because you kill her before web wrap. But if you get web wrapped, it's like people want a renew, a rejuve, a regrowth. They want to have like an abolished poison running on you. And it's pretty bad. Like I actually don't use a food buff, and I don't use a black juju, and I sometimes don't use an armor pot for like the elixir of superior defense. So it's like it's also because like there's hidden buff slots too, right?
Yeah.
Like for warriors, block dodging or parrying something in defensive stance that allows you to use revenge is a buff slot. It takes a buff slot to activate revenge, and as soon as you like use it and then you block dodge or parry again and it lights up but it's on cooldown, you can't drop that buff. You're kind of like, well, I have an extra buff here. Enrage is a buff that tanks experience because they get crit. Flurry is a buff slot. Blood Rage is a buff slot.
Badger the Swarm God is 2 buff slots.
True. Being in a stance is a buff slot. So warriors always have one less buff slot than everybody else.
Oh, Manak in the chat is saying Vanish is 2 buff slots. You are incorrect, my friend.
No,
Vanish is 3. Yeah, Vanish is 3 buff slots. You don't even know it.
Actually, dude, I actually as a rogue on Prophet Scarum, I had popped Earth Strike, Blade Flurry. Don't ask me why Blade Flurry on that fight.
Someone was going for the pass. Someone's going for the pass.
Don't tell me. Yeah. It's like you AR, you Adrenaline Rush, Blade Flurry, you pop evasion because you pulled aggro, you use sprint to get to the other sides, right? And then I had to vanish at one point. And so it's like I had 5 things taken up by buff slots, and then I added 3 more. So like during those moments, and then I had double Crusader proc. So I had 10 buffs added by popping my rogue cooldowns, having double Crusader, and then vanishing. Because the 3 buff slots of vanish are stealth, improved stealth, where you're less detectable, and then there's a purge buff slot that is when you vanish, that's what removes all the things from you that are like roots and shit like that. So there's actually 3 buff slots. One is instantaneous and very, very like, in passing, but it is enough to knock shit off. So it sucks. And if anybody shields you and you take any damage, because here's the thing, is I popped evasion after I got hit by something. So immediately like a power word shield comes through, and then somebody's wearing like 8-piece tier 2 and greater heal crits me, and I'm like, fuck. Like I remember I got my DMF pushed off that week, and that was like in the middle of AQ, and I was like,
there's definitely more
never
things,
buffing in that order.
Definitely more things that they can tweak with that though, because it's not perfect yet. To talk about negatives, it's not perfect yet, but it's definitely an improvement. There's been some people have noticed things like I think is it abolish poison or disease isn't quite performing properly. It's like way
it can be
harder.
Resisted.
Yeah, it can be resisted and things like that. There's been some like buggy things that have been going on that they need to tweak further, but this was like a stealth fix that they did, kind of like what they did, by the way, for rogues out there. You guys may not have noticed yet, but if you log out in stealth now, you log back in, you are still stealthed. You are no longer not in stealth when you log back in, which was very annoying for people that like were trying to get Ren buff in Org and such. You'd log off. You'd actually have to click off your stealth.
You have to click off your stealth.
Because you want to stealth as soon as you log back in, but now you don't have to do that anymore. It's really nice, actually. Yeah.
So like people are saying like, oh, there's a chance for things to be resisted. It's not like they're resisting your it's not like, oh, I'm the tank and I resisted you applying abolish poison to me. It's the effect was not like resisted being removed. There's a rogue talent that reduces the chance at which your poisons can be dispelled from people, right? And when that happens, it says resisted. So this, I think, is I actually don't know if that means that talent wasn't working correctly and like couldn't like it wasn't actually applying like the resist chance.
Yeah,
because I don't know.
I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out. Yeah, so before we move on to the next bit, we should just talk about the spell batching to wrap it up. So for people that don't know, there's interactions between spell batching and bosses is different than between players. So you can actually still vanish things on raids and such as a rogue. Rogues like to vanish, makes us web wrap and things like that. You can actually still do those things because the interactions between the rogue and the NPC is different than like if you were vanishing someone trying to hit you with a spell in PvP. It actually interacts kind of differently. So I have tested it. I did one Naxx raid already, and vanish was working fine. You can still vanish all the boss abilities just like normal, which is nice actually because it adds a little bit of more gameplay things that rogues can do.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it doesn't take things away, right? Like that's what I think Blizzard is doing a really good job of. Is they're making sure that they aren't like hurting the players significantly while being on your side for the game. That's what it feels like, is like Blizzard is finally in our corner, giving us things that we actually want. because I swear to God, there were times where I was like, bro, do you even play your own game? Which is a really toxic thing to say. But like, there were times like I can't tell you guys, like last few patches, all those things. I was like, you guys, dude, when they put up the TBC Kara client, and I logged into the Paladin and had 300 healing power and no other sets. I was like, do you guys even play your own fucking game? I was like, what is this? Like, I was like, there's some fucking intern. Like, but well, I mean, I say there's some fucking intern. Obviously, it's gonna be somebody who has a job. I don't know how many interns they have running that shit. But I was like, there's somebody fucking furiously googling like what pre-bis is for Kara. Like for each class, they're like, shit, man, what are the weapons? What are the weapons we're gonna give these guys? Just give them everything. Like you log in with a warrior, you have nothing. Next time you make a character, you have like all these weapons that you're just like, I don't even know what to do with these. You gave me like 3 fist weapons and like 4 axes. Like I'm like, oh, like thanks, but like, damn, I'm probably just gonna use the swords. God, like at first there was like too little, and then later, 300 healing at level 70. Yeah, my paladin had 300 healing at level 70 and had defense on my gear. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to heal. And my Kara raid was actually yelling at me because I was the last person in because I was running around to all the rep vendors, gathering everything. And I showed up with 1400 healing because I had to gather everything, socket it appropriately, and like pick up like lower city prayer books and like the mace, enchant it, go to like the caverns of time. It was a fucking mess, dude. I was just like, just put this shit on the goddamn vendors, man. Don't make me run like that's the thing, is the way they ran their tests did not get people into the fucking raids to test the raids as fast as possible. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It made you fight the game to get the gear you need to get into the raid. Yeah, which
legitimately our tank, because we had Stoops, he's a DPS warrior arena kind of streamer, PvP guy, and he was our tank for the start of Kara. And he legitimately said at times like, guys, I'm just gonna go back to retail. I'm just gonna go back to retail. I don't want to do all this stuff, because he was like trying to get all his gear, and then he was like, I gotta go do all the talents, I gotta go do all the gemming. He's like, guys, what enchants are even available? Which ones do I pick? And it was just, it took us so long to actually get into Kara when the Kara testing was going.
Like the thing that ended up happening is we ran 3 Karas within my guild. The first one we ran, I was healing in, and that's the one that took me a long time to get off the ground. Even though they gave me all that leeway time before they even opened Kara, right? They opened the servers for like 30 minutes or 20 minutes before they even opened Kara. And then they introduced rep shit, and then I like went around. And my raid leader's like, just get in so we can go. And I'm like, no. What's gonna happen is if we get in and go, and I have 300 fucking healing, you guys are just gonna die. I can't heal through this shit, and then we're gonna be like slogging through it. And so they waited for me. We went through it. We finished the entire thing. And then when we finished, we jumped into the other like Discord channel, and they're like constantly fucking wiping. Like they actually didn't finish. Our other raid team didn't finish. And what I did during that time was they were like, oh, we might need an off tank to come in. So I made a warrior, geared it up completely during that time. So I had like 20 minutes, 30 minutes while they were like wiping on shit to gear it up. And then I was just like, you know what? Let's just do another Kara after that one's done. And that one actually went probably the best out of all of them. And my warrior had like 16k HP, 16, 17k HP, like a fuck ton of HP when I was buffed. And it was it's like the preparation that went into that. I was kind of like, if you guys want us to test your raids, let us test your fucking raids. Like, don't make us like run around to each vendor. Like this is just stupid. This is actually just stupid. It's just it ticked me off, because I just felt like if they wanted data points, just make it as easy as possible for us to get them data points. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Like people are asking in chat, like, which was faster, Zirene's 3 Karas or Sno's 1 Kara? That was like 7.5 hours long. And like a big reason why is some stuff that you mentioned, is that literally we lost Stoops like a third of the way through, because he just like, it was taking so long and it took so long to set up. So we had to replace our tank in the middle. And at some point we're like, guys, I don't know if we can find a tank. So we had Savix literally swap from rogue to tank in the middle, and he had to go set up his entire warrior, and that even took even longer. It was it was an ordeal in setup for the Karazhan test. But
like the I don't know, the fact that they put the Kara behind a setup wall, I think got them way less accurate data compared to what they actually probably wanted out of that that test.
At least they fixed warrior flying though. So tanks are no longer flying at the start of your raid.
Man, I kind of wanted flight form, as a fourth stance, flight stance.
But I mean, this is a good point to jump over to the mag testing then. We must as well talk about the mag testing. So yeah, we both did mag. Mag was launched kind of buggy at the start, so well, not kind of buggy, just too much HP. I don't know where they actually got that HP value from. He had over 8 million HP at the start. I don't know
It's
why.
really interesting because I don't know if that was an endless value, because Mag had like 4.8 million originally, and then he got nerfed to 3.3. So it's pre-nerf Mag, but it was like a made-up version of him that was twice as hard as the pre-nerf version, right? Yeah. And I don't know if I'm fucking crazy, but I don't remember Magtheridon ever requiring 4 sets of clickers. I remember him requiring 2, and then that being reduced down to 1.
See, that's the thing that makes it really tricky as well in the raid testing, because I'm not sure either, because and this has been actually an ongoing thing for me since I'm working on this TBC guides website on the side as well, is that when I'm researching values and things, I feel like having the private server data almost makes it harder, because sometimes I don't know if the data I'm looking at has been contaminated by like what the private servers have changed, and it makes it very confusing at times when I'm trying to see what was actually there originally in TBC. But yeah, as far as the HP values, yeah, when we went into the raid, so I was in a streamer-esque raid, actually a very efficient streamer raid, that actually performed fairly well in the streamer raid. The HP of Mag was at 8 million, but I guess should we tell people just the rough mechanics of Mag first? Zirene, you want to go over just the basic Mag cliff notes?
Sure. Yeah. So you enter the instance and you wipe to the first trash pack. Okay, it's a very standard strategy. The trash is very hard. It does a bunch of AoE shadow bolts. You gotta have interrupts. There's a patrol. People don't think about that thing.
Don't worry, I did that multiple times.
You wipe a bunch.
Just to be safe, I did that multiple times.
Yeah, one of the nerfs they did to Magtheridon in TBC was they nerfed all the trash. They made the trash easier to kill. But anyway, so when you get to Magtheridon finally, after wiping a bunch of times, there's 5 cubes in the room, and those 5 cubes each have an orc channeling at them. You can enter the room and set up ahead of time, no problem. These orcs, you have to kill them before 2 minutes once you engage them, because that's when Magtheridon activates. The orcs cast shadow volleys, which can be interrupted. The thing that really needs to be interrupted is dark mending, and they all cast it around the same time. And dark mending is about 20% of their HP healed, and that increases the amount of time it takes to kill them, which means that Magtheridon is more likely to come out at 2 minutes and you still have these orcs up. So having dark mending going off is a bad thing. You want to kill these as fast as possible. Every time you kill one, the others remaining grow in size and in damage. So once you kill one, the remaining 4 are stronger, right? You kill 2, 3, etc. The last one's going to be hitting like a truck. So what you have to do is you have to put your main tank on one of the last ones you're killing. We actually had our main tank 2. Because we didn't want to have like 5 fucking warriors or tanks. So we had our main tank the last 2. We had our off tank one of them, had our other off tank another, and then a DPS warrior basically tanked the first one, or a DPSer tanked the first one. So we killed the first one, then we killed the second one, then that off tank went over and relieved the main tank of one of their ads. Then we killed the third ad. Then we killed the one on the main tank. And then the main tank got in position. Then the off tank one got killed. Then Magtheridon engages. The orbs are now clickable, or the cubes are now clickable. And what Magtheridon does is he doesn't do a whole lot. He will do a thing where he kind of just hits the tank very hard. A thing where he makes the ground kind of just bubble and like everybody jumps around. It kind of like has like debris everywhere. Everybody gets knocked around. This becomes a little annoying for clicking the orbs. But the big thing he does is he does a big blast wave. The blast wave is probably the biggest thing that you have to worry about. And the way to interrupt the blast wave is when he starts casting it, you have to click the cube. All 5 cubes have to be clicked at the same time, and then it interrupts him. You hold down this. This wasn't something that was, you didn't see a debuff on the boss or anything. But while you're holding it down, you take 800 damage a second, but the boss also takes increased damage. So you want everybody to hold the cubes for as long as possible because Magtheridon will die a lot faster that way. Once you've clicked the cubes, you now have what they had was a 2 minute, 3 minute. You had a 3 minute debuff, I believe.
I think it was 3 minutes.
Yeah, you had a 3 minute debuff, and he does the blast wave every minute. So you had to have 4 sets of clickers in order to do this. So that meant 20 out of the 25 people in your raid had to be assigned to clicking, and you had to assign them each to a certain spot at a certain time. So it's like this guy is going to this spot, and you're number 2, right? This guy's number 3, this guy's number 4, number 5, and you had to do that for each spot. So that's the part of Magtheridon that I think was really hard for pugs. Magtheridon is a lot of setup for just that. You have to assign 4/5 of the raid to clicking something at a specific time, and if somebody messes it up, you absolutely wipe. Like somebody messing up blast wave, it is a wipe. Everyone dies. He just keeps casting it until everybody dies. And the worst part is even if somebody saves it, what he does is that blast wave pushes back the amount of channel time the people who actually click the cubes get. So like let's say I fuck up and everybody in the raid, the 4 people who are supposed to, click it. Well, Sno is channeling and the blast wave comes out and removes ticks from him. So his cube will get interrupted. So even if somebody comes and saves the day and like clicks my cube when I fucked up, somebody else's cube is very likely to have already stopped channeling. So it's probably a wipe at that point. And if I click and double click it, then, well, guess what happens? You stop channeling. So it's a very delicate dance of 5 people every minute, and these have to be a different 5 every time up until 4 sets have gone. Click a specific cube at 1 minute, and you click it and you hold it and you click it 1 time. If anybody messes up, then you wipe. Then when he hits, I believe it's 30%.
30%. He starts and then he doesn't actually do it until after 30, but he starts his shift into that.
Yeah, when he shifts into his phase at 30%, his last phase, he makes the ceiling collapse, and it's a 2-second stun, and it is like 8,000, 6,000 damage to everybody in the raid. And then he immediately, this is something that I don't know if it was like this before, but I do kind of vaguely remember it, but he immediately started casting Blast Wave. So what had to happen is everybody had to be in position to click immediately, and you had to click instantaneously. So the 4th or 5th group, based on how quickly you were killing it, had to click right out of the stun. If you clicked before the stun, or you were in the stun spamming click because it wasn't going, you would double click it and you would die. So the phase transition from 2 to 3 is probably the most important part of the fight outside of handling the beginning. And that's what was wiping most people. Is it's a lot of damage that comes through. The stun is very jarring. You actually can't bubble the stun. It goes through Divine Shield. I believe it also goes through Ice Block, but you can blink out of it. But if you blink, you want to make sure you're facing the wall so you don't go flying. And I don't know if you can free action potion it because there weren't free action potions on the fucking thing. So strategies may change or develop over time where that group free action potions and then just clicks anyway, right? I don't know. But it goes very, very quickly right afterwards. So basically Magtheridon, the reason that I'm a little sad that they nerfed the HP because it was the 8 million, right?
Yeah.
And then only one raid killed it at 8 million, and then we killed it shortly after they nerfed it, and when it was down to the 4 million. But the thing is the pattern of Magtheridon is it doesn't matter how much fucking HP he has. Once everybody knows what they need to do, then the fight literally is exactly the same. He could have 10 billion HP and it would be exactly the same. So whoever got the pattern down first and understood the transition from phase 2 to 3, they were going to be the ones to kill it first, regardless of what the HP was. Now, the HP nerf did do one thing, and that was make it so that it was faster for people to get to phase 2 to 3 than it would otherwise. For example, it would take them 8 minutes to get there, whereas for us, it was oh, now it's taking us 4 minutes to get there because he has half as much HP, right? So getting to 30% was faster, so you got more repetition on practicing the transition. So that was kind of the benefit of the HP nerf. Otherwise, I think it's kind of irrelevant. Once you have the pattern down, you could have whatever the fucking mechanics.
Yeah, I was literally about to say as well. That's what our raid figured out is after we had the clicks assigned and such, it was just a breeze. We actually got to we got in 6 million of his HP down, and before the nerf, it was just a breeze. Once you actually understood the clicking and everyone was assigned and no one was screwing up the clicks, you could just sit there and keep going forever and ever. As long as your team had the mana to keep going, you were good. Like it wasn't even a challenge anymore. Phase 1 and 2, once you got the assignments and such down, it was all pretty straightforward. But that was, again, that's like what you were saying, is that's what was wiping pugs, is that I didn't even join another pug after my first mag, because I just knew that there's no chance. I had no faith in a pug to assign that many people and for that many people to not screw up. And,
I rolled an elemental shaman because I really enjoy Ellie shaman, and I joined a pug and I was like, oh, like if you aren't doing the due diligence of at least assigning everybody to a cube or whatever, like it's not just the assignment of the cubes, it's the assignment as well in phase 1 of interrupts, right? You have to have somebody interrupting each one, you have to have somebody assigned to tank each one, and you have to understand the order in which you guys are going to go about them. And then you have to have people assigned to each spot and have them know which spot and not get confused and be like, oh, I thought this was the spot I was supposed to go to, because it all looks the same in the room, right? So if a pug doing this, you got to have a good raid leader who like laid it all out for everybody and made it like idiot proof, because it's like, I was laughing my ass off because there's a guy in my guild who, when we wiped, he was like, it was just RNG. And we were like, somebody didn't click. How is that fucking RNG? He's like, yeah, man, it's human RNG. The chance that 1 out of the 20 people in the rotation fucks up is pretty high. I was like, human RNG. What the fuck?
I'm gonna start using that whenever bad things happen on my raid. Just human RNG, man.
Yeah, it's the human RNG. The chance that one person's gonna fuck up is pretty high. And then he's the one who fucked up the next attempt, and he was like, turns out the RNG was me all along. Oh my god. I love that guy. But yeah, Magtheridon, like, overall is the nice thing about Magtheridon is you probably only have to do him about 8 times, right? Because Magtheridon just drops so much fucking loot when you kill him. He drops a bag. I believe he drops a bag, 2 items off of his loot table, and then 3 chess pieces. So you only have to kill him like 8 times to really cover all the chess pieces that you need. So you don't really have to do Magtheridon that frequently, right? Gearing up 25 people with 6 pieces of loot off this guy every week, it's pretty fucking easy, right? So it's like Ani, but even better, right? Because he drops an additional chess piece, and it's not like, oh, you have a tier piece that drops for rogues. Well, the token system exists now, so it's like a warrior rogue chess piece drops, right? It's like it's things that have 3 classes on them, so the tokens are much easier to distribute and not have rot kind of thing if you have bad RNG. So doesn't he drop a head style quest too? Yes, he does drop a head style quest. So yeah, that's right. He drops his head, a bag, 2 items, and yeah, so Jesus Christ. He drops so much loot, right? He drops like 7 pieces of loot, counting the bag, I guess. Yeah, it's actually insane. So you only have to do Magtheridon about 8 times. I remember not doing Magtheridon at all once we were like doing Tempest Keep. Like there's really no reason to ever go there. There might be something that's off him that's like Biss, but
yeah,
7 people for half the people, and yeah, so it's 7 pieces of loot for 25 people. Is the bag unique? I do not know. I actually don't know.
So I think what you said about phase 3 being the actual thing is definitely true, because even in the streamer where I felt like 1 or 2 more attempts, once we got used to here you can see we're actually going into we just wipe here. This was one of the wipes where we went into phase 3 transition, and we were not ready for it to be that quick. Right, like at one point we even purposely waited above 30%. We waited above 30%, so we're like, okay, let's wait for the wave to go out, and then they'll give us the most time until the next one. But no, that doesn't work. As soon as he goes phase 3, he just stuns you and then waves again. So
yeah, I don't know if that's a bug, because the part of me remembers it being that way, where he did it immediately. But then I remember there were times where we would wait. And I tried it that exact same way. We did the same thing, where we did a blast wave, we held him, at 30%, we did the thing where we held it all and just did a lot of damage to him. So we burned him to like 20% or something. And then he started doing it immediately. And we were like, wait, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
holy shit. The other thing about Magtheridon that I think this version is a little strange. Nice broken gear, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about Magtheridon that was strange was not just like the HP value, but like the fact that it required 4 sets of clickers. I do not remember it ever requiring 4 sets of clicker. I only ever remember it being 2 sets of clickers and then one set of clickers later when it got nerfed. I never remember it being 4. And this seems like a private server thing, and I can't find any like records of this being a thing. Like I might have to look at like world first kills back in the day or something and find like some like Warcraft videos, like Warcraft VODs thing. But the 4 sets of clicker thing is so interesting. I'm not sure if it was a thing, but I like it. Somebody's saying something, so I looked into it.
Yeah, the time on the queues was originally 90 seconds.
Yeah, it was originally 90 seconds. Yeah, that means you only do 2 clickers, right? Well, 2 sets of clickers. So I can't find any record of it being 4, and that's the thing that like for me is really interesting because I'm just like, that means.
Where did they get it from?
Well, that I think it's a private server thing. I think it's an endless thing. Because we had a guy who played endless in our raid, and he was like, "Oh no, this requires 4," and I was like, "What? It's only ever required 2." And he's like, "No, like look at the timer and stuff. It's 3 minutes." And I was like, "What?" And it just blew my mind because I was like, "Did they intentionally make it harder? Are they going to make it like easier?" Because maybe they did that because, and you saw how quickly they could change Magtheridon, right? They were like, "Oh, once you zone back in, he's going to have half the HP he used to." By the way, like they changed it for everybody instantaneously. It's very easy to change boss values. So I wonder if they were like, people breeze through Gruul, people breeze through Kara, right? Like nobody was really challenged by these things. So they were like, let's up the difficulty. And that's like a testing point for them, right? So I actually like that for just like the difficulty's sake, because I like things that are more difficult. I guess the thing for me that like is a little bit scary for it though, is with this strategy, it means that you can't have more than 4 people die, right? Because then you don't have enough people to click. So if you have 4 people die, you're sitting at 20 clickers and your main tank. And maybe your main tank can click. I don't know, because maybe while he's channeling, you walk over or something and click. But that's a little monk ass for me, man. Like people will die, they'll lose people during the first phase. And God, I was actually mad at some people where somebody died in our raid and they didn't say anything and they just sat there. And then I had to be like, I was like, dude, are you a clicker? What clicker are you? Like, and he was like, oh, I'm on this one and I'm number 2. And I'm like, if you die, fucking say something. Like, we're literally gonna wipe if you die and you don't say anything, so nobody can cover where you are. Like, people have to communicate. But challenging content, Pog, yeah. I actually like it. But the thing is I'm just a fan of. I'll level with you guys. I don't like the feeling of just dominating the content on day 1, right? I don't like the whole like, this is the race to beating Naxx as fast as possible type thing. Like, if we need to make the content more challenging to appeal to a more mature player base, then I think that's better, right? Because right now it's like, how many people, like when I went to Warcraft logs, I think there were only like 6 Magtheridon kills that were logged. There's like 20 logs and a lot of them are like the same people or like different people in the same raid.
I do know some people that were private logging though, that don't have it public, that did potentially beat the pre-nerf mag as well. But
really?
But yeah, not a lot of public raids beat mag. I think because a lot of people filled it with pugs, and as soon as you introduce pug guys into the scene, it made mag so much harder as soon as you had pugs. Like the streamer raid was actually surprisingly well run. Just shout out to Snuts for running that, because he was the gracious and calm raid leader that it needed, because otherwise I think our streamer raid would have been horrendous. But no, it was good. It was good. I had a lot of fun. Because it's funny that we ended the last podcast talking about how, man, I hope stuff gets harder, because, or rather that we're talking about how the raids so far weren't hard at all, and now it just hits you with a mag where suddenly only guilds and prepared people actually managed to beat Mag.
Yeah, and like I'm looking at your composition here, and I'm going like, damn, that really sucks because like I was saying this at the end of our last podcast, and I actually forgot about this. Was the infernals that spawn during phase 1, where all the guys will start spawning infernals, and when they come down, they do a lot of damage. And if you eat an infernal plus like a melee hit, you just die as a caster. And healers will basically get aggro, and there's no tanks to pick these things up because they're all tanking shit. So you have to like use warlocks. And like I was saying, the more warlocks you have for Magtheridon, the easier of a fight that's going to be at all stages. Like I remember back in the day, like warlocks weren't as popular and people had like 1, 2, 3 warlocks. And I remember like bringing 5 warlocks to that and being like, this is the easiest Magtheridon of my fucking life. Like, holy shit. Like, is this what we should do this more often?
I mean,
and it was just so simple.
Funny that you mentioned Infernos. I'm pretty sure the attempt coming up is the one where I die because an Inferno is right on top of me. I die in like phase 1. But yeah, you can see our comp isn't even like ideal comp, but it's literally just we just invited streamers and other people in the seed and we did it. The only thing that got us was that phase 3 transition. We never people didn't stick around long enough for us to get the phase 3 transition because like we said, we tried to wait for the blast wave to go out and then trigger the phase 3 and that didn't work. And then our tank had to go and then we only had 1 tank left and that was rip to that then.
This was like a really pleasant surprise for me because I think I said this on the other podcast. I don't know, like because sometimes I talk about stuff on my stream and then I don't talk about it on podcasts, so I don't remember what I say on which. That like I really like games like Dark Souls where you can literally beat the game naked, right? It's just like the knowledge you have of when to dodge, etc.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I like things like that where it's not like gear dependent, but it's more strategy dependent. And it's like Magtheridon here. He could have 20 million HP. As long as you have the strategy down, you're going to be able to kill him as long as you don't run out of mana, right? It doesn't matter if he has 2 million, 20 million HP, just means it takes longer. And that one transition is the big thing. And also realize you need to have 4 sets of clickers. I think, and I wonder, I guess I'll say, I wonder if this is going to set a precedent for they will keep the same mechanics on bosses, but they will make windows tighter or require more people to do the mechanics. So there's more individual responsibility on each raid member, right? Because that's the big thing in Classic right now is there's 40 people in a raid. There is very rarely a lot of individual responsibility outside of tanks, hunter pullers, and like people who have to do things like decurse, but you obviously have like more mages and shit like that, and more druids. Whereas here it's like you in this raid only have like 3 people who can decurse, right? Yeah. There's less people to cover your job. And when it comes to something like clicking, if there were 20 clickers required out of a 40-man raid, well, obviously there's going to be a bunch of people who can cover that shit. But the more individual responsibility or percentage of the raid you give individual responsibility, the harder it becomes because weaker links get exposed more, and people who are slacking get, it kind of puts a highlighter on them, right? Or it highlights them, or people who don't know how to do a mechanic. Now that's bad for people who don't want to get flamed and shit, but it does make it harder, and it is a big part of raiding, and the appeal of raiding with more people, right, is everybody has to perform. So I wonder if it's going to set the precedent for same mechanics, smaller windows, more people have to perform them. I wonder if that's something that might happen.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, honestly. And the fact that my raid, and this is supposedly the hardest raid in phase 1, was able to actually get to phase 3 a whole bunch of times with our kind of like 2 tank comp with only 2 warlocks and such. It just goes back to the point that people really don't need to be worried about if you're not in a hardcore guild, you can complete these raids with suboptimal comps and such and still have fun. As long as people know the mechanics and all of that, it's all perfectly doable. Like when like a lot of the comments attack Zirene. Sometimes I feel bad in the comments for the YouTube because you go into like that min-max thing where you're talking about like how to optimize it for a speedrun comp for like a really hardcore guild that actually is racing and such. But like a lot of people don't realize, like, I mean, Zirene's not saying you have to have that comp. He's just saying that, if you wanted to fully min-max this and you were a speedrunning guild, then you do that. But if you're not, then as you can see in the raid comp we have, you're perfectly good to just do these things with suboptimal comps.
I've said it before, where like you can probably kill most of the content with the bare minimum requirements of classes, right? Like if you bring 1 druid for Mark of the Wild, if you bring 3 paladins for blessings, you bring 5 shamans, you bring like 2 warlocks, like You can bring a rogue. You can bring 3 rogues and 3 Fury Warriors if you fucking want to. You can probably still kill the content. The difficulty of it might go up. People might be like, oh, maybe the melee can't be all together. So it's like, I feel like you can beat a lot of the content with any composition. It's just like fucking Naxx right now, right? There's literally a guild on my server, Crusade, S-Fans Guild, that runs like fucking like 9 paladins. And some of them are prot. And some of them are ret. Like, and they have like 4 or 5 priests, and it's like 9 paladins. I'm like, they're clearing Naxx, Granted, it's not fast. They're not speedrunning it, but they're still clearing it. You can still clear this shit. Like, if you're worried about like, oh, I have to have these classes. No, absolutely not. I'm always talking about, when I say those things, I'm talking about, I'm trying to find what the fastest composition is going to be for clearing things like Black Temple and Sunwell. Because those are the raids that I really care about. So it's very, very specific, right? So like, I believe there's going to be a physical damage stacking composition, and I believe there's going to be like a warlock stacking composition, because I feel like, or a magic damage stacking composition, because I feel like there's not much net need for like an arms warrior in a primarily warlock damage and mage damage composition, kind of, right? So it's things like that where I feel like parsing is going to be pretty toxic because people want to be played towards, and I think raids that are going to be pushing for like hold on, I actually want to find this really quickly. Magtheridon, if I can find him. Okay. He's at the bottom, right?
Well, Zirene's finding that. So the main thing the 2 mechanics on Mag to watch out for is, one is that the clickers, you just have to make sure everyone's clicking and such. Once you have that assigned, it's phase 1 and 2 is pretty good to go, assuming you don't have people die for dumb reasons. And then the transition from phase 2 to 3, that's gonna wreck you if you don't have people literally on the click spot when it transitions, because you're gonna get stunned and you're not gonna have enough time to go click. But then there's actually one more, which is like you can see that happens on this raid, is that Magtheridon hits hard, guys. Especially if you're on the beta server where there's no defense gems and things like that. You can get RNG'd really badly. You get crushed and then like one round, and there's nothing you could have done about it.
Yeah, I actually, because I had been talking previously about like druid threat generation. Like druids are super good for snap threat with mangle. It felt almost impossible for a druid to tank this. We actually had tried having a druid tank, and then when we swapped to a warrior, it was worlds easier. Like warriors, strangely, especially on the beta, because there wasn't really like great like tank gear for druids. They couldn't really stack armor with like specific rings and shit. It was like meh. It felt pretty hard to tank this as a druid. You don't have a lot of defense rating. You're eating a lot of crushing blows. You aren't getting crit that much because of your talents and stuff, but you're still eating a lot of crushing blows. You're not dodging or parrying things and reducing 100% of the attack's damage. And warriors actually kind of had more HP and more armor because shields got buffed in terms of how much armor they have. So like warriors just seem to be all around like a better class for mitigating damage, at least on the beta. But I don't know if that'll stand true. Also, do you know who logged this? Because I'm trying to find the log for this on your side of things.
For us, I'm not sure if anyone logged. It was a pretty casual raid. It might have even been that no one logged.
Gotcha.
We just kind of randomly invited streamers in.
Okay. Because I'm trying to find. I was actually just gonna like pull up the. Here, I'll send you this log. This is the composition that we used to beat Magtheridon. And when I look at something like this, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, I can pull out your video. I have your video here as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So this was your actual mag kill.
Yeah. This was our mag kill. I'm spamming Holy Light because Holy Light is just a lot better than Flash of Light. Yeah, like a better spell coefficient. Flash is just something that I use for filling and when I have the time. Because less paladins means less Flash of Light, so Holy Light's going to do a lot more work for you. But yeah, if you look at the composition, just look at the damage meter, right? Like in the logs, we're running multiple hunters. We're running 1, 2, 3, 4 hunters. We're running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 warlocks, 2 Ellie shamans, 1 shadow priest, 2 mages, 4 warriors, and one of them wanted to leave the raid. One druid, 2 paladins, 1 priest that was doing healing, and then 3 resto shamans. So we didn't run like any rogues or anything like that. But when I look at this composition and I look at like who got played towards, I'm like, okay, so you had a shadow priest for the mages. So the mages did more damage than they normally would have. You had a affliction warlock for 3% more warlock damage. You also pulled shamans from the tank group and put them in the warlock group, who had an elemental shaman in there for more crit and hit, and gave them an extra heroism. So I'm like looking at this going, okay, these hunters who didn't get a second heroism, they don't have an imp exposed armor. And it's like, do we even have like an arms warrior in here? I don't think so. So I'm sitting there going like, there's so many things that like you could do to buff these other guys' damage instead of just like play to one. Because the warlocks pretty much got played to here. They even had a shadow priest, right? That increased their damage even further. So like the warlocks all got to have a field day. But I'm sitting here looking at it going, well, there's so many opportunities to min-max this composition. Just to go back to like the composition talk I was having, is when I see damage like this, I go, okay, how much did these guys get played towards? How much could we play to these guys instead and see damage increases from them? Because having a second heroism in your group is pretty fucking big. Like, it's pretty big. Oh, man. I think I was talking about it last time where somebody took the heroism out of my group when I was playing Fury Warrior on Gruul. And I just like, I said, fuck it. And I just started intervening. Like, I was like, this isn't worth me actually playing and trying to do damage. I'm just going to save the tank from getting one shot during reverberation. Like, that's my job now. So I do feel like there's really heavy ways to min-max compositions, and people aren't really trying to do that at all here, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see our groups are like, here's the warlock group, here's the here's the hunter group. Oh man, it was a very, very interesting kind of foray into 25-man rating. But I do feel like in Magtheridon, you're probably just going to stack warlocks, and people will go for kill time because it's not a speed run thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting the entire difference between your raid and my raid. Well, my raid has we literally have 3 rogues. It would have been 4 if Savix could have made it, but he was away that day. And we just didn't even care about class comp and anything. And then luckily we had a second tank just show up because one of my friends on White Main just happened to log in on his main tank there as well. And we did fine. Yeah, once the mechanics were done, we got down to phase 3. Literally the only thing that kept getting us was a stupid transition because we didn't have enough tries at the phase 3 transition before people had to go.
Yeah, this is like this is pretty much a full rain raid minus 1 or 2 people. Not like a rain raid 1 raid. There are people who like are in raid 2 who are like rolling shamans and stuff. And I'm playing Holy Paladin when I'll be playing main tank. And we have Maltese, the GM, playing his tank. I think he's going to main tank for raid 2 is the plan, but we'll see. He's the GM, so I'm always skeptical of a GM staying in their lane, for their class and not being like, I'm taking over main tank for this raid. So yeah, I played Holy Paladin for it because they needed one. They only had 1 blessing, but for the most part, this is a composition of people who are speedrunners who want to compete in TBC and are trying to roll the classes that they think they're going to roll and testing them out, right? Yeah. So that's why the composition looks the way that it does. And we're getting away with 2 Pally blessings instead of 3. And we're like, how much of a DPS loss is that kind of thing, right? How much do you need salve on people?
It's interesting to see the difference between like a really hardcore guild as well. It's something I've talked about on my stream with people is because I raid in different style of guilds. Like I have like a casual guild and I have like the hardcore guild, which is progressed. And I have like in the middle, probably ish guild that I'm joining on Felina. And it's the more hardcore you go, I think a lot of people don't realize you stop playing the class as much as you start playing for your guild's comp and for what your guild needs. Like a lot of the people you just end up playing for, okay, what do we need to be world number 1 for this one? Okay, we need another of this class, then I guess I'm playing this class now.
Yeah. Kramer just said, just keep a paladin outside of the raid blessings of 30 minutes anyway. Don't think that works. Because even right now on live, if a paladin in your Naxx is dead and running back and a boss gets engaged, it removes whatever blessing he had. And I know this because we did last week. We had during a speed run, we had like a paladin run back and we did Resuvius without salve. And I was sitting there going like, where's our fucking salve? And when I checked the VOD, as soon as you engage the boss, it actually wipes whatever pally buff you have on you if the guy's not in the instance with you.
Yeah, I can confirm in my super sweaty passing days. So back in Blackwing Lamb, my NA guild was actually very competitive as far as passings and things went for the server. I think we were like number 2, almost number 1 at one point. And we tried to get Pally blessings on our Horde tunes, so we literally leveled up a 60 Paladin on the other side, mind controlled, and then buffed ourselves with Pally stuff, and then zoned into Blackwing Lair. We actually kept the Paladin buffs until we engaged Razor, and then goodbye to all your buffs. Yeah, so we tried that as well. Just knocks it off as soon as you engage.
Yeah, it's TBC private servers are different, and that's going to be the thing here is how much are they going to be different? How much are they going to be the same? But I feel like Blizzard is going to try to... Blizzard has shown already that they are... Or at least what I'm getting from Blizzard is I'm getting cues that they are, one, trying to appeal to the hardcore player for TBC or the harder core player, and two, that they're trying to nip min-maxing in the ass if it's really inconvenient, right? Like they've already done the enchanting change. They've done like a leatherworking change for the drums. And they've said like, if there are any world buffs on zone in, we're wiping your fucking buffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if like, even if you zone into a raid, the way they do it is they go, fuck all your buffs except for potions. Like just get rid of all your buffs that aren't potions, right? So that's the thing is I feel like they've already said that they are committed to like stopping that. So if there was something where like a paladin had to be in the raid for like buff bitch or something, then I'm pretty sure they would just change that. And now recently, Blizzard is kind of, I don't know if they're picking up on like how popular Classic is going to be or how much people really want this, even if it's not like a fucking big stream game or anything like that. I think they're picking up on it and they're probably assigning more people to it because in the last few days, there's been more hot fixes than in like the last fucking year.
Yeah, right? Like the last like 5 phases or whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I'm trying to remember like when was the last significant hot fix I saw them do and how quickly they did it. And I think it was like the Chinese KT strat, and that was it. They were like, that doesn't fly. We're getting rid of that because like even the Heigen change I think took them a long time to do.
Yeah.
You know the KT strat, right?
Yeah. And there's actually there was one recent hotfix before this where it was I don't know if you were aware of this one, but for a short time the people were crashing the entire continent. I don't know if you guys experienced this on Felina, but there was a bug that you could essentially crash the continent. Is it Kalimdor? Which one's the one with Rend and Ogremon and all of that?
Eastern Kingdom.
So you could crash Eastern Kingdom. There was a night on Firemore where Eastern Kingdom crashed like 7 times.
Right, no, that's right. That's Kalimdor. I was like, the other one's Eastern Kingdom. So,
okay,
that's Kalimdor.
So it's Kalimdor, and people were crashing that, and that was a hot fix. That was like a stealthy one they put in there because I think that was.
Was that near the beginning?
No, that was actually recently.
Oh, what?
Yeah, people. I think they did it so fast that people didn't even know. And only if you were in a super sweaty guild monitoring that stuff that you knew, because I think what went down is that people started finding out about it and then they started crashing it to reset Ren buff. So that they could just keep infinite dropping Ren buffs and things like that.
Dude, and like the thing they did with Magtheridon on the beta realm, where they literally just changed his HP on the fly and did like a server announcement, which was like, by the way, his HP has been changed. Next time you zone in, it may be a different value. So like you may have to like pull him and then reset him and stuff. And I was just like, so they've proven that they have like direct access to these things that they can change on a live server without a server reset, right? And they can change it on the fly. And I'm just like, sure, that power might be something they don't want to abuse or use too much, but it gives me a lot of faith that they can go right into the back end. That sounds bad. They go right to their game and they can change things immediately. So I'm like optimistic for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to wrap up on some of the stuff we didn't cover last week as well, you just touched on it, is that I've got the blue post up on the screen now where they finally have an actual action in the game now that says if you zone into an instance with buffs acquired from quests or creatures in Outland, you will be purged. So now it's just like confirmation of what they said before that they wanted to do, where there will 100% be no buffs allowed into the TBC raids. Which again, it's something we won't recover it because we already talked about this the last time. But it's interesting to see them putting all these changes in, because the other things in this patch notes were things that we touched on before, and problems we touched on. You said that Blizzard is finally almost like listening and making these changes, because the other thing that they put in here is that they're gonna relax attunement requirements with Karazhan as we get deeper, which is, I think, is a great change. So basically, what they've said they're gonna do is that Karazhan should initially require attunement, but will no longer acquire attunement at a later phase. So what this means is that it's going to be easier for you to say late in the phase, say, hey man, we need to recruit people, and then people are gonna say, no, I don't want to get level to 70 and then do attunements as well. That sucks. Now it's going to be way easier to convince your friend, because you can say, yeah, you don't have to do any attunements. We just get you to next level and you're good to go, which is really, really nice.
And like, people who watch the podcast know I'm a big fan of anything that's going to bring more players into your game to keep it healthier for longer, right? Yeah. And allow people to engage with your game. I don't like giga gatekeeping, but I don't mind gatekeeping at the expense of or I don't like gatekeeping if it's something that's like trivial or people have moved past your phase. I don't mind it though if it's something where it's like the difficulty of a raid is very high, right? And it is on the player to perform better. I don't mind that type of thing. But I don't like it where it's like, if I'm late to the game, I don't feel like I want to play it because there's too much catch up, right? Like I was talking about this with other expansions where you miss an expansion, you're just like, well, shit. Like how many people are joining Classic WoW in the middle of Classic WoW? Not a lot of people are joining in the middle, right? People are joining now because they're trying to get ready for TBC, but it's like in the middle, fat chance of people like trying to pick up the game and just be like, oh, well, look at me. Right now, especially like people, I could tell you, dude, there are people who are coming back to Classic WoW, and we're offering them like speedrunning spots because we know they're super good, but they're like, I don't have consecrated stones, and there's no way for me to get consecrated stones because they quit right before the release of Naxx, right? They were in AQ and then they coming back. So they have no consecrated stones and there's no way for them to get it. So they're like kind of gate kept from speedrunning because they don't have this item that's unobtainable. Right?
Those consecrated stones, by the way, are actually noticeable, because like there's some raids right now I do, because in raid 3 we have a mix of like sweaty players from raid 1, and then we have a mix of sweaty players who are playing a little bit more casually in progress. And sometimes I look at the boss damage and I think, man, I did everything perfectly on that one. How is Murathan still beating me on that boss by so much? And then I look at his weapons and it's like, oh, right. He found 5,000 consecrated stones even for his second rogue out. That's right. He's got 200 more attack power than me on this one. That's why I can't catch up here.
It's pretty insane, where if you ran out of consecrated stones, then you kind of SOL, like, or you should have been more stingy with them, kind of thing. So
but I mean, I like people in the chat are talking about the leatherworking change, and that's I don't think anyone's really happy about the leatherworking change. But what me and Zirene are mostly saying is that we're excited to see that Blizzard's at least trying to make these changes, and a lot of the recent changes at least have been positive outside of the leatherworking one with the Chronoboon, and now they are looking at making attunements suck less as we get later into the phase for catch-up reasons. And the other one down here is this is something we touched on really quickly in the last podcast, which was the ring enchants and Jewelcrafting stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing where it's like you don't want some new player to come into your game and then be like, wait, I've been leveling up alchemy, like what? I gotta drop that, pick up enchanting, enchant my rings, drop that, pick up leatherworking before the raid, or like pick up Jewelcrafting after I pick up enchanting and drop enchanting. Like what the fuck? So I like this from a perspective of not a min-max thing, which, I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's a min-maxer, compositions, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this is one of the things that I just want more people to be able to play the game at whatever level they want without it being like, or I guess like, I don't want people to feel like they have to do something to even play the game. Like people, you're talking about in the YouTube comments are saying, he's talking about this composition and it's like, oh, I have to play the game this way. It's like, no, you absolutely don't. And here it's just saying, no, you can't play the game in this min-max way because it's going to create a culture of like, you don't have your rings enchanted. oh man, like that's pretty bad. So I don't know. That stuff just to me seems really trivial. I know Tetsu likes it. I really don't like it. I feel like it's I don't know, it's just such a minimum gain,
Yeah,
and it doesn't feel like
it
you're
adds a
making a meaningful
tedium to
choice.
the game. I feel it adds a
Right.
tedium that I don't think is healthy for a lot of
Yeah.
players.
And professions, in my opinion, should have meaningful choices associated with them. Of I am a swordsmith, so I use the Lionheart Executioner type thing, right? So I think meaningful choices should be what professions are for, and whether it's gold making, tanning your rings, whatever, instead of pick up drop. So
Yeah.
so
I mean,
I think it's good, but I'm not everyone, and I don't know how they're gonna feel
an
about it.
interesting side effect though of the change is how many people do you think are actually going to go enchanting still? Because I was actually looking at this because the problem is a lot of people look at enchanting from a private server perspective as well, and this is
Mm.
something that's honestly frustrated me in the last couple of weeks as I've been trying to put my guides together and such for my new website that's coming. And a lot of the private server data has tainted the view people have on a lot of things. And then I looked at the actual enchanting we're going to get. We don't even have +4 stats until later. And
Mhm.
if you go enchanting right now, literally you're just going enchanting for the +2 weapon damage as a rogue
Weapon
from a rogue
damage.
perspective.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm not going enchanting just for +2 on my rings, guys. That's not
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah, it really depends on what's available at the beginning phase and what's available later on. Because for me, as a tank, like I feel like even the tankatronic goggles weren't going to be available until later. I know the hard corium goggles aren't available until the
Yeah,
Sunwell and
it's
stuff
down
like that.
here. The epic
But
ones are tier 5. Whenever tier 5 comes out.
okay, so the second phase or Super Strength Cavern and stuff that comes out.
Yeah.
So that's when I'd swap to engineering for the tankatronic goggles. But before that, I'm kind of like, well, I'm probably going Jewelcrafting leatherworking so I can have like more stam gems if those are even out. So
Oh, that's the other
um,
thing when I was looking at Jewelcrafting is that I don't even think from a rogue perspective I don't even think I'd go Jewelcrafting for any PvE reasons because I looked at all the stuff that you get. It's not even out until late phase anyway. So
mhm.
right now you'd go Jewelcrafting and barely get any gain, if any.
You can't make the Shadow Panther.
You can make the Shadow
The
Panther, but
well,
only
the
the
first
first
version of it.
version. So for people that don't know,
Yeah.
there's 2 versions of the Shadow Panther jewel crafting trinket that you can make. The early version, it looks not bad, but then you look at the actual stats. So actually, I'll pull it up.
Yeah, it's like a Slayer's Crest kind of thing. But
Shadow. Does anyone know what's the actual full name?
I know the Shadow Song Panther is the
Night's Eye Panther.
the Night Side. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it is.
So
Okay.
I've got it up on the screen. People can see it. It looks really good at first. 54 attack power and 320 attack power on click. But then you realize it's 12 seconds versus 20 seconds
Yeah.
on other things. So there's actually other trinkets that, as you're leveling up, that are kind of on this level already. Just because it's 12 seconds instead of 20 seconds on the boost. So I feel like for people that
Yeah.
are going jewel crafting, they're more doing it for the stealth level if they're like PvPers and such. I don't see any PvEers going jewel crafting in phase 1 at least.
I feel like if you're a rogue, you're gonna want this because rogues, I think a lot of your good shit's gonna come from PvP anyway.
Yeah,
PvP. At least this stuff you're gonna want to pick up comes from PvP, and I'll actually talk about something in a second here afterwards. But yeah, I think this effective stealth level for humans is going to be really good, just so that perception is even that much better. And for people who don't want to get caught by perception, you're going to want the increased stealth level by 1, because this is kind of one of those things where if you don't have it, you're going to feel it. If you have it, you're just going to feel better most of the time until everybody has it. So it's definitely a leg up on people. The other thing I was going to say was I was looking a lot more into like warrior stuff and like how shield block trinkets like glyph and stuff like that end up just being more TPS trinkets on pull. Like you pop your the saffron one, the glyph of deflection, which adds shield block value, and then you shield slam on pull, right? And that's how you get more TPS. Is you're using defensive trinkets as offensive trinkets a lot of the time, and it's a kind of an interesting shift or dynamic where you want to kind of itemize defensively to get offensive burst. So it's a lot of things in the game that are going to be very different for people.
I mean, there's one interesting thing with engineering as well. A lot of people were talking about going engineering in phase 1, just because of the PvP elements of boots in arena, and then there's also potentially a belt, that gives you a lot of HP if you're playing double DPS burst.
It's like
But
4K, right? It's like super
it's
big.
like 3,000. It's just a lot of HP.
Yeah,
And
it's a lot.
there's one thing people don't realize though for PvE is that the leatherworking shares a cooldown with your sappers and such in PvE. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that were talking about taking engineering for PvE because you could sapper and such as well. But for a lot of cases, you're actually just going to be using your leatherworking drums. And when you use your leatherworking drums, it puts your sappers and such on a 2-minute cooldown. So you don't really double up unless there's a specific reason you need to put like a crazy big sapper pool or something. You're not going to use your engineering stuff in the. If anything, you might just use your classic engineering stuff like your chicken maybe, and that's it for PvE purposes.
For me, I'm like kind of dead set on ongoing engineering in the second phase for like Surface Giant Cavern and like the hard, not the hardcore ground, the Tankatronic, and as a tank having the AOE threat. So for me, it's kind of like I don't see myself in the places I would use Sapper needing to use a drum, and even if I did, I would just put myself later in the drum rotation. Does that make sense? Where it's like I would put myself fourth in the drum rotation, so I sapper on pull for snap threat, and then I would be the fourth person. This is like from a fucking min-max perspective, right? Where it's like, yeah, you can go engineering and leatherworking, and even though they share a cooldown, like I would use sappers on trash, leatherworking on bosses, because I'm not going to use fucking leatherworking while I'm going in between packs and stuff, right? Unless I'm using like a speed one, I don't know.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's yeah, I feel like there's a lot of uses for engineering outside of just the goggles, and that's why I'm attracted to it.
Yeah, it's a fun
from a tank perspective.
I think the interesting thing that I found when I was doing my research is that it does open up a lot of varieties in phase 1 as far as what you want for your second slot. I think for a lot of melee, you're just stuck into your leatherworking just because drums are still good, so you're still going drums. But your second option, you have a lot of options. Like you said, you can go Jewelcrafting for your stealth trinket. You could go engineering for the PvP purposes as well. You could still potentially go enchanting if you care about the +2 stats. It's like your second option for your profession is open to you. You can go what you want, which I kind of like that. I wish we didn't have to go leatherworking as well, so open up even more. But it's nice that at least one profession slot is open and there's no min-max bis there for you. It's kind of like open for your interpretation and use.
Yeah, and there's people who like I've seen wanting to go blacksmithing on a rogue for the maces.
Oh yeah, that's a good one as well. Yeah,
right. Even if just for PvP, which was a strange thing, I was like, really? Like, yeah, you know, it's still a hard-hitting weapon with haste. So
yeah, it's for like I think it's for those people who want to go PvP for the first week or two of arena before everyone else catches up, and you're just crushing them with this mace that is doing 5,000 more damage than their weapon.
Yeah, dude, the arena gear is really interesting. Like, because I'm looking at like from a tank perspective, I've been looking at it more and more, and resilience is actually a really good stat. It's a little bit more efficient than defense rating for getting like uncritable. And I know druids have to lean into it. Like if you're a druid tanking, you probably have to PvP during all phases to get at least 2 pieces, because that 35 resilience actually ends up being a lot. And you're basically your only defense is stam armor, and then you have like a 3% reduced chance to get crit talent. And then you just want to add on top of that to have less chance to be crit. And as a warrior, there's actually some benefits to it. Like there's like shields, I think, in every phase that have resilience on them that actually end up being a really good like pre-bis kind of shield thing. So yeah, I'm interested because there might be some resilience gear or gear from PvP that as a PvE player, I'm going to have to farm out on characters that I mainly PvE on. So
yeah.
It'll be really interesting.
And I'm excited for what's going to come. And for people asking about my website stuff, who DM me about that, like the reason why I'm making the website as well, and we're going to have a podcast section, is like, I think it'd be nice if like when me and Zirene talk about the theory crafting or something, if I can pull it up on the screen and be like, yeah, this is the theory crafting we're talking about. This is strategy. So yeah, I hope to integrate the website into the podcast and such in the future. But are we ready for speedrun talk, Zirene?
Okay, yeah, we're ready for speedrun talk.
Ready for speedrun. Okay, guys, for everyone,
are they ready for speedrun talk? No, I'm just kidding.
Everyone in the comments that doesn't like speedrun talk, you know you can skip ahead and such. But yeah, let's talk about speedrunning. So, in the last is it 2 weeks now? Is it a week? Basically,
a week. Yeah.
Progress released the logs for the last, God, is it 2 months or for the last quite a long time of their logs and VODs and such. Progress actually released 3 world record runs at the time. All 3 were better than the previous world record pace on live. One of them showcased the Saffron strat. 2 of them were 45-minute times. I think the third run was 46 minutes something.
Yeah.
And so, but like right after Progress did that, a few days, how many days after maybe?
It was a few days after they had enough time to, PTR and do a bunch of other stuff to like catch up.
A few days after that, NoTA broke the record on live with their run, using a similar strat. They kind of incorporated the previous start, so they do the spider wing start, and then they incorporated the saffron strat as well, which
is exactly what I was telling Tetsu. I was like, it's still a time save to do the spider wing start. Like, I still firmly believe that. It's very interesting.
But yeah, so we probably won't go a full analytical breakdown or anything, because we kind of already talked a lot about it on Tetsu's stream. I'll put the link in the show notes and such for people that want the VOD. Me and Zirene were on Tetsu's stream as he was showcasing the run, I guess you could say. And what are your thoughts, Zirene, as far as the way as far as the way Progress did this? Because I feel like it's built up a lot of hype for speedrunning. Just the way that Progress didn't log for a while and then suddenly released it. And suddenly, Tetsu had thousands of people in his stream that day. Wowhead was making articles about it. I thought it was interesting to see the hype that was kind of pent up and released at one point.
Well, they had teased that they had like a really good time, right? And people were like racking their brain. I was too, thinking, like, how did they do this? What did they do? What could they have possibly done? And kind of having the reveal of it, I think, was just the big thing, because this was something that hadn't been done before, where normally what happens is people tune into a speedrun stream, right? And you're watching the run and you're like, I wonder what they're going to do this week, right? What is Noob's going to do this week? And or somebody, I guess with Noobs it kind of happens, but you tune into a stream and you see it and you're just like, oh, this is the new world. This is going to be a new world record. Like, you're watching it live. You're saying like all these new strats, they pull them out and you're like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Like, they did this, they did that. With this, it was kind of, this is already a world record, but you haven't seen it yet. And you had a lot of time to process, like, what could it be? And it was like the mystery. It was like the unveiling. That was, I think, the big thing, because you knew it was a world record. So it wasn't one of those things where like you're watching like, a Tetsu stream and you don't know if they're going to make a new world record or not. And then you see the strat live and if it fails or if it succeeds. But here, like, what they did was succeeding and that they had put up world records. And so I think that was the thing that built the anticipation of it, is everybody wants to see what happened, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to go back and see. So yeah, that's what I think kind of created all the event like celebration and stuff about it. But the NoTA stuff, man, that is like, I asked Tetsu, I was like, why now, kind of thing, because if maybe wait one more week, but they felt they had hidden it for long enough, because I don't know if NoTA had even thought of the strategy or what.
I think, to NoTA's credit, and this is something that we can cover in a little bit as well, is that from what I've heard, NoTA was on the way, or at least had figured out some of it towards the tail end of that. Progress was still the first ones to do it way back, because they had the saffron strategy down for a long time. I think from what I understand, NoTA did have it if they hadn't showcased it, but they did find out about it later. After Progress did 45 minutes, everyone started racking their brains, and I think like that's when NoTA started figuring it out that, okay, Progress has this other strat that they're doing.
Yeah. So I wonder if somebody, just random conspiracy theory, put my hat on.
Okay.
So what if Progress knew that NoTA was figured out the saffron strat, and they were like, well, NoTA's going to run this week. They're going to do the saffron strat. We should show it so that it's like, it doesn't lose that
the value
that
of it.
That value, that special edge, that reveal, right?
Yeah.
So what if it's like that, where Progress figured out that NoTA had figured it out, and we're like, well, we don't want NoTA to get all the credit for this.
Oh,
And
I
then
mean,
reveal
we
it
can talk
later.
about it because
Instead, we
I
should be
have
the first one
like
to
a whole
tell.
bunch of stuff that's come up from that as well. There's been a lot of banter and back and forth and such that maybe you're not as aware of because you're not on Firemore server, so I get exposed to it firsthand. There's been a lot of banter back and forth, but I do have it on the screen just before we move on to that, just to show people the strat who haven't seen it. I think at this stage most people have seen it, but basically you take the Thaddius polarity, and then you time it with his death to try to get a polarity right before he dies. Then you take that polarity into Sapphiron and you basically kill Sapphiron in like 20 to 30 seconds.
Yes.
Basically,
and NoTA did it better because they didn't Light of a Loon their own death wishes off. So they actually had the 20% damage increase, which is a big deal. So they actually killed it, and they didn't have to, like, because there was a lot of like speculation on the whole Petri thing, right? With
okay,
with
I'll
Progress,
put it up for people. Yeah,
where Progress used 40 Petries, or I guess like 35 or something like that. Technically in combat, but out of combat with the boss. So it was like Warcraft logs combat was still dropped, but in-game combat wasn't. And so they went around the Petri rule. But when I was sitting there going, like, I think you just need a few extra seconds to not split, or to split. And then NoTA does that, and you see, like, they don't require the Petris for this at all.
Yeah.
So it's not even like close to something that would be controversial here, which I think is really fucking interesting for me, because I'm just like, I am slightly blown away by the idea that that this run probably can't get that much better. Like, I don't think they lose any warriors until KT.
Yeah, so just to explain what Zirene said for people that haven't been up to date with this, is basically after you kill Sapphiron here, they Petri off the extra. They Petri off at the end, but you don't need it. And a lot of the controversy for the entire progress run was that, one, they used Light of a Loon, and then two, they Petried after the Sapphiron kill. But both those things were things that progress said you don't need to do these things to do this run. And people were like, I don't know, I think you need to do these. And then NoTA came in and showed, yeah, you really don't need to do these things. They didn't do either of those things for their run. They spread instead of Petri, and they didn't use Light of a Loon. Which, by the way, in the NoTA run, I don't have it here, but in the NoTA run, I feel like they took a risk by not, like, I don't even think everyone on their team lipped or anything like that. I think they just hoped that at least from what I saw, it just looked like the tank crit at the start and he get enough threat from that. Because I didn't even see lips on everyone, I don't think. For the stats.
I'm not sure, because as long as they can get it as fast as possible.
So to explain for people at the start of the SAF, the biggest danger here is that you have a whole bunch of people here at the start with the tank, so they can get cleaved and then etc if they open here. So that's why you kind of want the Light of a Loon or the lip or whatever it is. But yeah, that's why people were speculating whether you needed the Light of a Loon. But I mean, NoTA proof you don't need it. You can do it with the lips, or some people don't even need to lip if you're not in front of him.
Yeah, NoTA just that's the thing that NoTA, I feel like, I don't know why, like, even when I was watching Raid Masters, that like kind of like NoTA comes out of nowhere type thing. I'm like, not really. NoTA's just been like, I think they've been number one at the end of every phase, or number two at least.
They would one in Naxx. Not Naxx. AQ. Yeah, AQ. Yeah, I think AQ is the one. So the thing about NoTA is that I will say, so like, to put into context, guys, I am in progress on one of my tunes, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But I'm not on the speedrunning side of things there, so I'm not like on Raid Team 1 doing the speedruns and such.
They were also number 3 behind Progress and Onslaught in Blackwing Lair. And in Molten Core, they were 19th. So yeah,
it was from AQ onwards. They were very strong.
Well, like, I mean, being number 3 overall, or being number 2 Alliance Guild for Blackwing Lair, still a big deal in my opinion. Like, it's not like they're coming out of nowhere.
Okay, yeah. So I just pulled up the NoTA run to show what we're talking about it.
Like, I just feel like NoTA's level of execution when they're polished is the highest in the world. Like, I that's the thing that, like, when I watch their AQ run, which I think I mentioned before, like, I absolutely fucking love their AQ run. It's one of my favorite speedrunning videos of all time. Like, the music selection, even like the strategy, the way it's edited is actually fucking top tier. I don't know, you've obviously seen it, right? Like the
Yeah,
AQ40 speedrun video. It's so good. Um, I don't know, like their execution is very, very, very high. And if people haven't watched their AQ40 run, I highly, highly recommend it, even from an entertainment standpoint. Like
yeah.
it is just good. It is just well done. So.
Yeah, even as someone who's in progress who should be on like the enemy team or whatever, when I think of NoTA, I think the execution is by far the best of any in my opinion the best of any guild. When I think of speedrunning, there's two aspects, right? I think there's the innovation side of things and then there's the execution side of things. I think progress has been maybe like number one up there with noobs when it comes to innovation and such, and then NoTA has just from AQ onwards has been number one with execution when it counted. Like when they execute well, they execute incredibly well. Because I think how many deaths did they even have up till KT? Was it like two or something like that?
I think they had like a 2 deaths. I think it might have been like a hunter death and something else. I'm not quite sure, but yeah,
crazy clean.
We're not taking a lot of L's. You know, they were doing well.
Yeah, it was pretty much the progress run, but with the spider start and cleaner. And with good RNG on the pools that needed the RNG elements to it, which is going to make it very hard to beat actually. Which is a whole nother topic. Is that can people beat it now? Is PTR down still? I'm not sure.
Wait. Did they do the same strategy? I'm not sure. I don't think PTR is down yet. I'm sorry. I wasn't looking at the I guess during the progress run with Tetsu when I was watching it. Did they do the rogue runs ahead, Petri flasks, gargoyles off to the side, and the Invispot cloaking device past the acolyte sets? I didn't think so.
I don't think they did. Tetsu talked about the things you can do.
Yeah,
there, but I'm not sure if he showcased it on the run that we watched or not.
Yeah, because they use 3 types of in the Spider Wing. They use Invispot for the Fairlina Sapper pull. They use Gnomish Cloaking Device to get past the first Acolytes and Ghoul Pack, and then another Invispot to get after they kill the Acolytes that are at the top of the stairs, and the Gargoyles are pulled off the side by a Rogue that fucking leaves the group, gets Ghetto Hearth, gets summoned back, and comes back in. They kill the Acolytes at the top of the stairs, and then they use the Invispot to get past the Ghouls, and then kill the Acolytes, and then move. It's just they basically made it so that part is scripted, and even if you have bad RNG, they take the RNG out of it. So, which I'm mad about because like our run that we had was very slightly better than our previous time, but it's not like any of our 48, 47 minute times that we're now putting up on PTR, and a lot of it came down to RNG of Pats and stuff, where people were like they would hesitate, they'd be like, do we pull this, and that just takes all of it out. And so I think we are now approaching the point where it is getting almost perfected. You know, it's very, very hard to improve on what NoTA just put up.
Yeah, and if PTR does go down and people can't get the PTR testing in, I don't know if they beat it then, because to reference the amount of PTR time, progress in a lot of guilds in general actually don't do as much PTR as people think. They do very targeted testing on PTR, but they don't actually just live on PTR. But since this competition rivalry has kind of started, both NoTA and Progress have upped the amount of PTR that they typically do. NoTA, I think, has the most PTR time out of anyone right now. When they were trying to figure out how to beat Progress's 45-minute time, and I don't know if they take down PTR. I don't know if you can beat that anymore. Or rather, if people have enough practice to beat it. But we'll see. We'll see for sure if they take down PTR. But I'm not sure if it's beatable if they take down PTR.
Yeah, it's going to be real fucking hard to do. Like, honestly, a lot of things require PTR practice to even just get reps on.
Yeah. So, I thought I'd talk about kind of a side topic of all of this, because you brought it up earlier where, like, the conspiracy theory that, like, maybe Progress knew that, like, NoTA knew, and then, like, so Progress beat them on releasing the strategy before NoTA could release the strategy, even though Progress technically had the strategy first anyway. It's kind of like this really weird, like, mind game situation where they're just going back and forth and back and forth. But the first thing I want to note is that it's interesting, like, the amount of flack and hate that progress gets sometimes on some things, almost as a side effect of just being like that gold standard speedrunning guild, like they're almost like the giant at the top. And I feel like you see this in any esport or any competitive thing where if someone's number one in a lot of things for a long time, people start rooting for the underdog. They kind of like want to see them dethroned, and they want to see like the guy that's coming up and taking out that top guy. Because if you look back at the history of WoW Classic so far, Progress is overwhelmingly gotten like the number one finishes for the start of the phase and then at the end of the phase as well. If you look at how many titles or whatever the guilds have in total. And one interesting thing I noticed is that wait, let me see if I can. I'm not sure if I pulled this up or not. Is on every social media post when Progress beat the record and then it started spreading out on social media, crazy controversy in every comment section. Wildhead, I know the guy that wrote this Wildhead article, Simonize, he's a fellow rogue. He was telling me they had to delete and get rid of a whole bunch of comments and stuff because it was just the comment section was turning into a mess. And same with I posted the VOD analysis that we did on Tatsu's stream. I posted that to Reddit as well. And if we look at the like, there's more hidden comments here than there are actual comments. That's how controversial it is that people like argued and downvoted each other so much that it went to like crazy levels. And one guy even posted in my Reddit thread. He asked hey, why aren't there any comms on this? Why aren't there any comms here? And I said, yeah, well, one, most guilds don't allow you to share comms openly if you're in a top tier guild. And two, it's like for privacy reasons as well. Like someone might just say something on the raid and you haven't signed off on saying, hey, I'm going to put this in front of 10,000, 30,000 people on YouTube. Are you okay with that? So it's just easier to just not have comms in a lot of cases. So I just answered that thinking it was like a seemingly nothing question. And he just replies instantly with, must be easy then to hide and say things that you don't want publicly streamed. Like he was trying to do this weird racism angle for the Progress run. And the whole time I was thinking like, I don't know about that, man. If anything, I've never heard of Progress being like the racist guild. Like I know that's prevalent in the high hand, upper hardcore scene at times. But out of all the guilds to try to attack Progress for racism, that was like a really weird one.
I don't think that's like I think they're just trying to.
It's just straight trolling.
Trying to be. No, they're trying to be inflammatory. They're trying to like paint them in a way. It's like they're trying to create a confirmation bias and be like, oh, it must be this thing. And I'll just say like, if you sign up to raid and you just join like a random guild, you didn't sign off on having yourself be streamed in comms and then not being, and people are like, well, just don't talk. It's like, well, people still want to talk in raid comms, but not like have their identity out there kind of thing, right? Like, what if I, like, being like quote unquote Zirene, wanted to fucking play WoW, not under the name Zirene, and have nobody know that I fucking played this so I don't get harassed or whatever, right? Yeah. Like, there are people who want that type of thing. And then it's like, you go to SFand, right? And SFand is a streamer. You are joining a streamer raid, and then he streams comms in his Crusade raid because you signed up for it. If you want to be in that raid, you know that your comms will be streamed, and it's part of the criteria of being in the raid is that you say, yeah, that's fine, right? So in most top speedrunning guilds, you didn't sign up for it and go, oh, my comms will be streamed. So it's not what they signed up for, right? I guess is just what I want to say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so what I noticed as well is that as when I posted this, it was like getting crazy like downvotes, and then eventually it went positive because it was a good VOD. And then like when NoTA came back and beat it, man, it like they took it to another level. We got stuff like this in the Firemore Discord where people were just posting just these crazy, to the point where even the people on Horde side were like, can we just kick this guy? Because like who are these Progress haters like coming in and spam? Even the NoTA guys were like, these guys, we do not associate with these guys. They do not represent us, because they were just spamming this sort of nonsense everywhere. And it's something I noticed is that like so I wanted to get your thoughts on this topic, because it's kind of an interesting one, because I feel it's something that's come up in esports a lot, that the difference between banter, like what counts as banter and what counts as like just straight toxic behavior, because
Yeah.
I saw it a lot in regards to Noda. To their credit, I think they've toned it down a lot because they felt it was going a bit much. In that
Mhm.
when Progress first set the record and started releasing like 45-minute time, and then they released it publicly, people would come up on streams and such, and like sometimes they were even Noda officers or Noda players, and they just do everything they could to discredit Progress's run and say like, oh no, it doesn't, it's pretty lame that they use this and this, and to the point where I think at some point they realized, okay, we've gone a bit much, we've got to tone it back a bit because it's taking away from the competition.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, I also noticed what I would call like the double lift factor, where banter in gaming is fun sometimes and it builds hype and
Mhm.
it can make things interesting. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on this.
So in my opinion, banter, in order to have effective banter, you need to one be skilled at the game, right? In order to banter, otherwise it has no premise. If somebody who's fucking at the bottom of the standings starts talking shit, it doesn't mean anything. Even if it's clever or witty or whatever, it doesn't mean anything. It has no grounds. It has to be between people who are have some rapport, whether it's a back and forth of a rivalry or whatnot. But banter is things that are slightly personal, but you have the rapport, specific, but also clever and witty, and you can appreciate that part of it, right? That's why it's like the best parts of banter are the ones where somebody has quote unquote like a zinger or something like that, right? Where they somebody said like banter is Kek W no Petri, right? Like it's I don't know if that's like the banter that I say is like top tier banter, but it's something where like um Nota gets the end of their run and they're like, oh shit, we forgot the Petri or something. And then they all Petri for fun before KT, right? Something like that. Like that shit's like that's where you start getting banter where it's funny. It's got that element of like lightheartedness to it while also being a bit quote unquote sassy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like good banter is not malicious, harmful, or like direct. Banter is not exactly slimy either. It skirts that line of being clever, indirect, but also like very specific, right? It has specificity to it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
something I noticed a
very
lot
hard.
with the
It's a great game.
entire Nota run as well. Because after Nota released that run, which just smoked it, it was like 43 minutes something, and everyone was like, "Holy, that was an amazing run. It was super clean." Like I got
Yeah.
messages from other people being like, "Man, that Nota run was clean. That was really good." And then at times they were like, pity they went a little bit far with like the toxic comms and such at times." And I was like, "Yeah, that's just how it is. I'm okay with that." To
Man,
some degree,
people are
as like
excited as
a
well.
as a fellow competitor, like
Yeah.
I almost feel like you just banter is really good as long as it's like you're not like you said, maliciously attacking them. You're not
Yeah.
going at them as like, yeah, this guild sucks and you guys are like bad human beings or whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
it's more like it's like kind of lighthearted but almost like, yeah, I'm better than you. Yeah, you get
Yeah.
that.
What was it? It was like uh I think there was something where like if you watch like the Raid Masters tournament, I think it was Yikes from Rise,
Yeah.
like had like a thing on his water bottle that was like Onslaught tears or something like that. So he was like drinking Onslaught's tears at one point. Uh and when we beat them, I was I asked somebody if I should do this and they said no, and I was gonna drink out of my water, and when they did the interview and I was gonna go, oh hey, didn't see you there. What was that? Yeah, I was just enjoying my tasty beverage here. What is it? Oh, glad you asked. It's the Tears of Rise, because I too like to make fun of people when they quit the game, just like Yikes. So it's like because Yikes apparently had stepped back from the
Yeah, you
game
stopped.
after their speedrun, right? So he stopped, and they're like, nah, because I've never talked to Yikes, right? And that's like, if I've at least talked to him, then that's better. Otherwise, it's just like, who the fuck is this guy coming at me,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, you have to have rapport in order for banter to not be toxic, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's something that I hope the banter can continue. I just hope that it never
yeah.
like, because at times it felt with like the Progress and Noda rivalry. At times it felt like, geez, these Noda guys are going a little bit far with trying to discredit everything that Progress is doing. like times they like as soon as progress would do something, it'd be like 5 guys in the Warcraft logs Discord saying like, oh, progress shouldn't be doing this stuff. It shouldn't be allowed. Even though they know in their head sometimes it's like, yeah, this is perfectly fine. They played according to the rules. But it's just been fascinating for me watching it because I've gone back and forth looking at it. At first, I was like, man, these NoTA guys are toxic. And then I've gone back and thought about it and thought, but I love watching Double Lift in League of Legends because he's got top tier banter when he's talking with his opponents sometimes. So
yeah.
There's definitely that line somewhere that where like banter can be really good, but
yeah,
you gotta be careful.
People start posting that clip of Tetsu where he said something like "NoTa's not a threat" or something like that, right? There was like some clip of Tetsu saying like he wasn't worried about NoTA, right?
Yeah.
It's there's a lot that you can do off of that because when somebody like says something along those lines, then it's kind of free reign for you to fire back, but also be like. I would say there's once you talk shit, get hit kind of thing. Once you're the person hitting back, it always feels a lot better for the community. They're always like, hell yeah, get them kind of thing. Like, what are they going to say now to get back at them? Because that's one of those things where people in the guild were probably like, oh, we're not a threat type thing. We're going to show them, and it motivates them, right?
Yeah.
So I think that stuff is completely fun and fine, but it's very, very hard.
Yeah, I mean, I can say this. I can't say much about the speedrun team because one, like, I'm not allowed to leak anything anyway, and two, I'm not doing the speedrun. But I can tell you, those guys are definitely fired up to come back and try to get that record back now. You can bet that like if people weren't happy to be PTRing before, you can bet they're happy to PTR now.
Yeah. Oh man, and like worried that it's gonna go away or get pre-patched or something like that. So.
Yeah, I just hope the PTR stays up, just if nothing else, just for the competition for the next month, at least for one more DMF to see like a proper like back and forth. I think that'd be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, and I honestly want I kind of want Blizzard to just come out and say this is the last fair, so that there isn't that like what's coming next thing, because like people have been saying it's the last fair since fucking end of January or February, man. Like. It's been the last fair for 4 fairs now. Come on. So I want them to come out and say, like, this is the last one. So the speedrun community really can actually that week just be like, who gets it? When is it locked in? Type thing. Right?
But yeah, any closing thoughts on the speedrun?
No, I think NoTA did a hell of a fucking job. And, big props to them. They always come out. And once again, you get like, if there's nothing else you listen to me on this podcast for, just watch their AQ40 speedrun. It is an absolute fucking delight. Even if you're not a speedrunner, you will enjoy the way it is edited, the way the music is used. It is very fucking good. So I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Nothing else to take away from this.
Yeah, again, to NoTa's credit, even as someone in progress, I respect the fact that the execution is insane. Like, I think even any progress player would say that, yeah, NoTa's crazy good with execution. And I hope that going forwards, like, the guilds can, like, find a good middle ground between banter and not go too far in regards to like, trying to discredit each other just for the sake of competition. But yeah, I hope to see a nice back and forth.
Yeah, you always want to have that because it gets people more invested, right? It gets people being like, oh, are they going to be able to clap back this week? What's NoTA going to do, right? Like there are a lot of people who, like you said, if you create a villain, people now have somebody to root against kind of thing. Yeah. So it's like almost like a necessary evil of if everybody's friendly at the top and nobody's got that like competitive side to them where they're like are saying that they're the best, because not everybody can be the best. If somebody declares himself the best, as soon as that happens, like if 2 people are saying that, somebody's got to be wrong. And then when someone's wrong, that's when the comments come in. So it's something that I think is necessary to have a healthy, vibrant, competitive scene in almost anything.
Yeah. I will say one thing before we close here is that I did enjoy reading about or rather not enjoy, but it's nice to see someone else running into that issue where they were talking about how NoTA was saying how they've never experienced that much toxicity with regards to people targeting for dispels for like trying to stop them doing the buff train. And it's so much like as a progress player, you read that and think, yeah, that's right. That's what progress has been going through for the last like 5 phases with the targeted buff attackers and WCB and everything, where literally they're just tracking your every movement for 12 hours on. But thankfully, that's all in the past now. Chronoboon is the thing. Goodbye to that. Thank the Lord.
Yeah. I mean, dude, when some of these guys started the run, they had like 42, 44 minutes on War Chiefs and Songflower, and I was like, Jesus Christ, something must have happened. Like,
oh yeah.
they, yeah,
the toxicity did step up. Well, once they knew that both Noda and Progress were trying hard. But I think that's all the topics I got for today. You got anything else you missed?
No. I'm super happy with the way things like have been going from Blizzard's end, like especially this last week. I had a lot of fun the previous week doing the TBC testing, and it, people were saying it might burn us out on it. I actually just want more because I just want to go play my class and other classes and go test them out in like not PvP but like PvE in Kara. Because like I think Warriors had like bugs with Shield Slam. There's like different comps that weren't experimented with. People pretty much got to run Kara once or twice on like a Warrior and feel bad, or a Rogue and feel bad. And then once you learn the mechanics, you can like actually play around them. So there's a lot of things where I'm just like, I think it gave them a taste, and it did the opposite of what I thought it would, because there just wasn't enough time to play around with it, right? You basically got like 1, 2, 3 runs tops. So it was right in the middle. So it was good job from Blizzard again there, except for the templates. What the fuck?
But yeah, this has been Prepared, episode 8. I hope you guys had fun. We'll be back next week with more. Take care.